Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket train, the bomb busting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land under the brave, in the home of the brave? Because we are the brave. Yes, we are the brave. We'll fight you in the name of the brave. We are the US of A. For those unaware, that flag is still there. It's our future to save. Stand of the brave, the US of A. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land under the brave, in the
Academy Award-winning documentary filmmaker Michael Moore. Michael, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is Rachel Maddow. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Keith.
There's been a spike in the desire to own guns in Connecticut. Statewide, over 90,000 guns have been authorized for sale. You know how I feel about it.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Good evening, my fellow patriots, my fellow Americans. This is Jeff Norton of the Midnight Patriot podcast and radio show. Man, we last minute changes and everything. We've been really busy trying to get some new things set up here, so I do apologize for a little bit of the discombobulation, I should say. But in a minute, we're going to actually have Rodney Lee Conover on. He's running for Congress, 2014 Congress. And also, we have another guest. We're going to have Samuel Joseph Wurzelbach on. He's going to be joining us. For those that don't know, it is a.k.a. Joe the Plumber. You know what? I think I hear him in the background here. Like I said, we made some last-minute changes, and that's the last thing you want to do in any kind of radio show is make changes at the very end. Hey, guys, are you there?
But
I got
okay.
you. You're on now. Sorry
probably
about
Jeff opening the show, and he's probably going to bring us in.
I am bringing you in right now. Gentlemen, can you hear me? Gentlemen? Technology. You guys got to
Oh, man.
You guys got to love it.
Well, what happened?
Got to love it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a small break here. And what I'll do is when we get back from the break, hopefully we'll get these things worked out. Like I said, this is all technology. This is all technology, so we gotta kind of work through it. So what I'll do is, like I said, we'll take a small break here, and then when we get back from the break, hopefully we'll get Joe and Conover on.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute you. I mean, how is it, I mean, can you hear me good or a little bit?
It's Rodney. I can hear you great, Jeff.
Oh, you
Can
can?
you hear Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff, I hear you just fine, brother.
Okay. Well, let me, I don't know. It looks like I'm just going to have to talk to you guys over the, hold on for a second. Let me see if I can get this thing to work. Because it's not going through the mic. That's the problem.
To enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment,
Can you guys hear the background music or the ads?
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us
I
hope.
can't hear anything except Joe and Jeff.
Okay. All right.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital
good, though, that
is
the
saving
adds-
lives with pioneering research and
It
care.
is.
We're changing the
What I might have to do,
By
this is a
sharing our
nightmare.
discoveries
I should have never changed the
every
technology at the end of it.
And will never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
Well, I suppose I could probably figure out
I
the
wanna be
night
back
thing
at
real
school
quick
with
for you.
my
That would
friends.
help.
Yeah, that seems to be working. For some reason, this isn't taking our audio feed to the computer
Join St. Jude in finding cures and saving children.
and
Visit
stuff.
St.
And then,
Jude.
Rodney, if you want, can you just call in?
Yeah.
And then have
I'll
Joe
do that right now.
have Joe just do. Man, I am horribly sorry, but we'll get through this, right? But
Hey, don't worry about it.
All right, guys.
Don't worry about it for a minute, Jeff.
All right, and then Rodney, you can just call in. I'm gonna dump this line, and then you can just call in right into the board.
Home to their family.
Okay, I'll hang up and call in that other number.
Thank you, sir. The 262 number, not the first one I gave you, our main number, which is 262-997-0607.
With wounds you can't see.
Okay, here I
Like
come.
All right, thanks, sir.
post-traumatic stress disorder. Wounded Warrior Project was created to provide the support these wounded veterans need to ensure their return to America is well-adjusted and successful. But we need your help to ensure that our mission is a success. Help us honor and empower these wounded warriors. Contact us at findwwp.org. America, welcome home the brave.
You're listening to the Midnight Patriot Radio Show and Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. If you want to join the conversation, you can always go out to the web at www.themidnightpatriot.com. That's www.themidnightpatriot.com. Our call-in numbers are there for those that are listening and want to call in and participate in the conversation. You can give us a call at 262-997-0607. That's 262-997-0607. That line will actually be used, and this is actually a great example. We have far outgrown our capacities here at the Midnight Patriot. We were just on, we set up a, what they call a tie line or a group line and technology, technology. Maybe the NSA just doesn't want us to have this show tonight. But I do promise you, we will get congressional candidate Rodney Lee Conover on here in a little bit, and we'll also get Samuel Joseph on Joe the Plumber, a.k.a. Joe the Plumber. He's going to be joining us here in a few minutes. We're kind of switching around the lines and stuff so they can give us some access into the system and everything. So, but we'll just kind of carry on until we do that, until we get them on. And for those that don't know, we always start our show out with Madison Rising. Madison Rising is the music provider for the Midnight Patriot Radio Show and Podcast. So if you like their music, that Star Spangled Banner, they play a lot of different songs. We'll actually feature them throughout the show tonight. And go out to their website. It's MadisonRising.com. That's MadisonRising.com. Get out there, listen to their music, support them, support those that support us. One of the things that we've been talking about here at the Midnight Patriot Radio Show is that we are going to be increasing our phone lines. Right now, we're kind of a small operation working within our budget. That's a novel concept, right? Very novel concept, especially with this administration, working within your budget. Actually, we talked to a group, Lou Marin last night, and also Lauren of IamAmerican.org. Talked about doing a constitutional convention, Article 5, to force our government into a constitutional budget. In other words, adhere to the same rules and everything that you and I do, as we do here. We would like to expand this, make this thing, take it global. But we have to live within rules. We all have rules. Every one of us has rules. And and we talked about that last night about budgets. So we'll get to that a little bit later and stuff, but it looks like we got our technical issues worked out. So we're going to go over now. We're going to, don't forget, we will honor the fallen. We will have that segment and everything, but we pushed it back because, we have some very special guests. All our guests here at the Midnight Patriot are outstanding and special to us because they're fellow patriots. But we have a few gentlemen that are coming on that you've heard of, who actually have been out there. And first, let me introduce, hopefully, future. I wish I could introduce you as future candidate or future congressional member of the great state of California. This is Rodney Lee Conover. Hey, Rodney, how are you, buddy?
How you doing, Jeff? Can you hear me okay?
Oh, I can hear you much better. This is a lot better than all that technology and stuff. Let's just go back.
You can go ahead and introduce me as Congressman Conover. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Foregone conclusion.
It is. Well, yeah, that's right. We got to be positive about that. I know that Joe will be on in a little bit, so he's actually dialing in right now. Let me see if I have him.
Let me tell you something. There's a great wave coming, and the way you can tell there's a great wave coming. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but perhaps there are people in your audience that have not realized this, and this will be a great relief, perhaps a great inspiration. And that is, The way you can tell that things are going well is that the major media becomes paranoid and starts rolling out a bunch of polls telling you the bad news about Tea Party conservatives and religious conservatives and real Americans. Because they did the same thing right about 6 months before the 2010 elections. All you heard about was that the Tea Party was a bunch of, they rolled out this word astroturf. It was a bunch of astroturf Americans, meaning it was phony. It wasn't real Americans gathering together and moving to organize and do something that they normally wouldn't do. It wasn't a bunch of real Americans standing up and objecting to what was going on. And then in November of 2010, they got their asses handed to them. Okay? None of the polls said that it would be the most historic elections in 60 years. None of the talk shows said it was going to happen. None of the pundits said it was going to happen. And it happened. And what are they doing now, Jeff?
Oh,
same thing.
Same thing.
Oh, look at the polls.
Yep.
Nobody likes Ted Cruz. Nobody likes the Tea Party.
Yep.
The Tea Party is bad. Americans are bad. Conservatives are bad. That's how you can tell things are going our way, my friend.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I've always said it was funny when I was trading in tech stocks, and you're out there in Silicon Valley. We always used to say you can tell how the tech community is doing by the traffic jams going to Silicon Valley. So you can actually see, you apply that same to the political arena. You can see how we're moving and affecting change by what the media is doing and the attacks and and we talked about this on our last show. I don't know if you were able to listen to it 2 nights ago, where we actually talked about Sal Alinsky's plan and how Obama picked that up, because he was raised and taught that as mentors. And everything, and we have his playbook, and it clearly says, one of the rules in the playbook is number 1, lie. Say whatever you want to say as long as you get elected and you get to do whatever you affect your change. And we're seeing that constantly. I think America is definitely seeing that this administration, even today with Seabrist, she's standing up there, and I don't know if you happen to watch. I know you're busy running for office and everything, but she was up there and she's saying, nothing to see here. There's, all the sites up and running, and CNN went to a split screen at that minute, and the site was down. And
that was hysterical.
Oh, it was hilarious.
That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just at the grand moment, the site goes down. I just love that. It was really great.
It's horrible.
But, another thing is that, there's another real great indicator, and that is to dovetail on your comment about Saul Alinsky. There's another rule about Saul Alinsky, and that is, I think it's number 5, and that is, when all else fails, humiliate your opponent.
Yes.
And look at what they did. Or look at what they attempted to do with Ted Cruz.
Yes.
They are just flat out calling him a domestic terrorist.
Yep.
Can you imagine that we live in a country now where the non-Fox media, as my friend Ann Coulter calls them, describes people who associate themselves as patriots, people who associate themselves as being constitutionalists? We are now terrorists.
Yep.
You can disagree with, you can even disagree that the Constitution should be changed. Fine. There's actually a process to change the Constitution. You can change it legally.
Oh yeah,
there's a process.
Yep, we talked
about. I don't have a problem with changing the Constitution if you want to. Change it.
Yeah.
Get some support and change the Constitution if you don't like it.
And actually, that's a good segue. I'm going to cut you off because Joe actually just joined us. Hey, Joe, how are you, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing great. Hopefully you can hear me fine.
Oh, we got you, man. I do apologize for the early snafus, but hey, we'll push through. We march on. We're not going to blame anybody here, like some other people. We're just going to march on. We're going to fix it like we should. But
Hey, Joe, I have a question for Joe real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Joe, what healthcare package are you looking for? The gold, the bronze, or the silver?
Oh, man, I bought Band-Aids at Kroger's. I'm good, thanks.
Oh, okay. I thought that's why you were trying to log on here.
No, that's fun. That's fun. And actually, it's funny. There's some parody sites out there that I've already seen popping up. It's hilarious. But going to your point, Congressman Conover, we were yesterday we actually had the gentleman from IamAmerican.org on, and Typhoon Lou Marin actually said say hi to Joe. Apparently he wanted to make sure that I said hello for him to you, Joe.
Yeah, Typhoon Lou.
Yep, Typhoon Lou. He was on, and they were talking about the Article 5, and doing the convention. And, we had an extensive show on that, and there is out. I know a lot of people are, hoping to affect change, through impeachment processes and all that stuff. But I think that the Article 5 is probably the best way to go. I mean, without a doubt. I mean,
well, listen, we need to make change, and I think, it'll help definitely getting Rodney Lee Conover elected. But real change is going to take place at the state level. That's really where we need to focus on with state legislation, strong governors. Like I've been saying for the last couple years now, it's not the United States of Washington, D.C. It's the United States of America. 13 colonies, essentially states, came together and created the Constitution. We created Washington, D.C., and we were in charge of it. And I use that, past tense, were.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people, since I went down this path and started, I woke myself up. I started doing the research. A lot of people don't realize that the federal government is beholden to the states, not the other way around. But for some strange reason, the states, or we've gotten into this paradigm where the state, where citizenry thinks that the states are beholden to the federal government. I mean, look what's going on in California. To bring some topics at home, the medical marijuana arguments. The state of California clearly said, we're going to allow this. But, those operators, and I'm not for that. It's just an example of the intrusion. The state voted on it. The people voted on it. If you don't like it, you could vote against it. But they're still under the thumb of the federal government, and they're under the fear of the federal government coming in and indicting those individuals.
Arizona is a perfect example of what you're talking about. Louisiana is actually recently in the news. Eric Holder suing the state of Louisiana because how dare them want to help 5,700 minorities get a better education and save $18 million to boot. So Eric Holder decides to bring them up on charges. Same thing with Arizona. You got illegal immigrants coming in through the border. You got parts of the state that are unsafe. These illegal immigrants, a lot of narco-drug terrorists are practicing warfare on our sovereign land. And yet Arizona, doing its best to guard its borders, is Hillary Clinton wants to bring them. 2 years ago, wanted to take a case to the UN.
Absolutely, and what's scary is that we haven't really. Oh, hey, someone's talking to us. So what's really concerning is this whole TSA, this 100-mile band that basically is a constitutional free zone. Where if you're on the United States soil and you're within 100 miles of a border, be it Arizona, be it New Mexico, even the Canadian border, you're within 100 miles of the border and stuff, basically you can be searched and seized at any time by federal authorities. So, you definitely, you have to go far in the news to see that the federal government's overreaching. And, people, like I said, for some reason have just forgotten that, the states are the union. It's the states that make the federal government. And that's, like I said, after last night's conversation that we had with Lou and Lauren, I think the Article 5 is just a perfect avenue for us to really, really make change. Obviously, we got to continue on, and we got to start putting, loyal patriots into office that are going to fight for our rights. And everything. And, I've talked now Roddy, don't get upset with me because I've been a little critical of Cruz, of Light. I know that you talked to him, so there's two questions you got to ask him for me and stuff. Is why did he forget about that freaking Cayman Island bank account? I mean, why? I mean, that's just they're jumping all over that in the news and they're demonizing him, and it does on the face look bad. It really does, and like I said,
I don't care about that stuff honestly.
Okay.
No one's going to be crystal clean and perfect. Nobody. Not me. Not Ted Cruz. Not you.
Not me.
Not Joe Wurzelbacher.
Yep.
I don't think anybody is beyond reproach.
Sure.
I don't, and I will ask him about it. Trust me. I will, and I will ask him for you, and I will actually impersonate you. I'll do it in your voice if you'd like.
That's fine.
But let me say this. I will not throw out the baby with the bathwater when it comes to Obamacare, when it comes to finances, when it comes to conservatism, when it comes to the drive to get this whole situation turned around.
Sure.
But yes, of course I'll hold his feet to the fire. And if there's something illegal that he's doing, yeah, he's if he's guilty, of course it's wrong, and of course he should be held accountable like anybody.
Yeah.
But you know what, Jeff? If it's not illegal, I could care less because that's just the way it is.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I was looking at it a little bit more. You know, we try to get the truth out here, whatever. You know, I don't care what side of the fence you're on. I mean, we want to report, and I did look into it. And, you know, he did report it himself. So I got to give him credit. So, you know, maybe it was just, it's just, I guess my thing is when you're it's a distraction. I mean, we have so much momentum after the shutdown and everything. We had so much momentum, so much voice. And it's
He's
just a
married to a banker, to an executive at Goldman Sachs. Now, a lot of people criticize that as well. And I say, wait a minute. What's wrong with that? It's the same people who criticize Mitt Romney for making money. Wait a minute. What are you criticizing Mitt Romney for making money? Let's criticize him for Romney Care. Let's stay out of this making money thing. And if you're going to criticize him for making $250 million, I would say, excuse me, it's $500 million, not $250 million. Let's get the money right. And let's be proud of the guy for making money and hiring people and being a good capitalist. I'm really sick of that stuff. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
If there's something to be critical of, let's not be critical of success. And that's my deal, Jeff.
Absolutely. The only concern that I had with that was question number 2 is and it's unfair. And I will admit it right here on the air that I was unfair to Ted Cruz, and I apologize and stuff, because when I started to think about it and everything, you know, you're absolutely correct. My concern was with him being married, you know, to so close to Goldman Sachs is the fact that, you know, we hear about the politicians. You see it more with, you know, they did that expose on Nancy Pelosi and how her husband has made so much money off of these bills and off of everything from the insider trading. So, I mean, my question was there, you know, is there any, I'm more concerned about the fact are they going to be able to dig up the same story? Because, you know, mainstream media with Nancy Pelosi, it was all over mainstream media. They dropped it. They didn't, you know, you heard about it one week and it was gone. You know darn well with Ted Cruz, you're never going to hear the end of it. If there's any kind of correlation between, and I guess my thing is,
You're right.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, if Ted Cruz's wife is wrapped up in shenanigans, I'll be the first one to go, hey, you know what, Senator Cruz, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
And you know what? Get rid of it, own up to it, fess up to it, and pay a fine and go to prison if you need to go to prison.
Yeah.
I'll be the first one, Jeff. But until that day, I'm going to say, good for your wife. Good for her.
That's right. Well, and, you know, that's the thing is that we've been demonized. I mean, Joe, you can step in here. You've been demonized. You're a person that's definitely been demonized by mainstream media because of your convictions and beliefs.
Well, absolutely. But I want to dovetail off what Rodney had just said. Success. We criticize people in this country for being successful. Now, growing up in high school, or growing up, from the 70s and 80s, we were encouraged to be successful. And now all of a sudden it's back asswards. You can fail and not be criticized. I mean, look at all the failures or successes, however you look at it. Now, some people believe Obama's purposely hurting this country. Other people, still don't buy into that. But I'll call it a failure for right now. I mean, look at Obamacare. Look at the NSA. Look at the IRS. Look at there's no budget for over 5 years. I mean, so someone's successful and we want to criticize them and tear them down. Yet all these failures out there, we don't hold anybody accountable. There's nobody that's going to be responsible. No one gets fired. No one goes to jail. And, and the media sits idly by and stirs the pot. And, obviously they stir the pot more for the left than for the right. But, that's just the way it is. I'm not a big person about fair. Real men don't worry about fair. They just go up and they go out and they get it done regardless of it being fair or unfair. As far as Ted Cruz with the Cayman Islands and his wife, hey, I'm glad they're successful. But you got to remember, the government's the one that put the loopholes in place for the richer people, if you will, and they're going to take advantage of it. They're going to manipulate their situation one way or another, and legally, I might add, because your very poor people do that. They manipulate their situation, and they get more with welfare and SNAP. And, it's human nature. But the problem with that, what it comes down to, is the backbone of the country, the middle class. They pay for these loopholes on both sides. They pay for the loopholes that the rich get, and they pay for the loopholes the poor get, and we're stuck in the middle.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I look at my tax bill at the end of the year, and I looked at Bank of America didn't pay anything, or I looked at General Motors got that TARP money, got all that money, and then they basically reneged on $10 billion. That was reported yesterday. We talked about it last week because we heard rumblings about it in Forbes. That General Motors was told they don't have to worry about repaying the $10 million. And then on top of that, President Obama, here's another great example of our leadership up there, lack of. I think he's leading us. He is leading us. He's just leading us to a path of socialism, but that's neither here nor there. Well, it is, but we'll talk about that later. But the fact of the matter is that, they took that money and now they're building factories in China when they were told, or that, part of the stipulation of them accepting that money is that they had to build factories here in the United States. And President Obama just gave them a pass, just said here. And not only do they, got a pass on the $10 billion that they owe us, the American people, they didn't create any jobs and they moved, they moved their operations to China. I mean, you're absolutely right.
Let me tell you what happened with General Motors, Jeff, in a nutshell. You know what the problem with General Motors was? It was not a problem of unions. It was not a problem of management. The problem with General Motors is they were not making cars that Americans wanted to buy. Pure and simple. You can blame the unions, you can blame the government, and you can blame management. But it all boils down to the fact that they're not making cars that Americans wanted to buy. So they went bankrupt. Or they were on the way to bankruptcy. So the government comes in the form of Barack Obama and says, well, they're too big to fail. That is the problem. They are not too big to fail. Nobody is too big to fail. And once you say they're too big to fail, it's like a wife who tells a husband, it's okay to cheat on me.
Yep.
Because you have enabled them. They have not learned their lesson. They will always cheat on you. It will never end. Barack Obama told GM, okay, I'm going to bail you out. So the behavior, i.e., we're going to make cars that no one wants to buy, will never end. Okay? They bail them out, and they allow them to go bankrupt. After they bail them out, they allow them to do a new IPO. In other words, people who've had GM stock forever, 50 years, and these are regular people, okay? These are retirees. These are young people. Anybody with an IRA, with a 401k, with any sort of pension, Anybody who has GM stock, guess what that stock is worth? Diddly. It's worth bupkis. Zero.
Yep.
Okay? Nothing.
Yep.
And then they allow them to do another IPO. It's disgusting. Okay?
Well, then on top of that, they allow them to take over a basically another junk lending institution through GMAC, and they're talking now about they've got a bunch of toxic debt. Once again,
of course, they're doing essentially what the housing industry. They're doing subprime lending in order to prop up the sales. And now the government just sold off all of their crappy GM stock at a $9 billion loss, and they're running around for the past how many years, 4 or 5 years, saying, well, oh my God, they did such a great deal by bailing out GM. You think a great deal is losing $9 billion? It's a farce. The taxpayers just paid $9 billion to the union. That's the bottom line. And you know who took it in the shorts?
Me and you.
The freaking people who lost all that money that owned GM stock.
Absolutely.
And that is the little guys. And that is what Barack Obama is all about, screwing the little guy.
Well,
I don't know why people aren't waking up to that. Jeff and Joe and Rodney Lee, it's like only 3 people know about this, and my dad's sitting here, now he knows about it.
No, it's amazing. Like, we started this show about 3 weeks ago. We've been growing hand over fist. So, I mean, it's amazing. We are getting the word out. So I think there's a couple thousand now that know about that. So there you go.
Oh, well, that's good.
That's good.
That's a relief, huh, Joe?
It is.
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead, Joe. Sorry about that.
That's what it takes. It takes getting the word out and talking about it every day. Getting that information out there. That's what I do on my site, Joe for America. We get the information out there. It comes down to education. We talk about why, and earlier in the program you were mentioning that people don't seem to understand that, the government is controlled by the states as opposed to the other way around. Well, it comes down to simple education. We've allowed our education system to become corrupt and ran by liberals who really don't teach our children anything, and parents are too busy running around 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs because the economy sucks, for lack of a better word. And they're not taking their responsibility as parents seriously and teaching their children what the schools are missing. And so you got a whole 2 or 3 generations of kids that have been growing up, some entering the workforce, that really don't know anything about America. They don't know anything about the American culture. In fact, they don't even actually know there is an American culture. We've been celebrating diversity at the expense of the American culture for the last 25 years, ever since Reagan left. And that hurts America.
Well, exactly. I mean, just the other day, we talked about this. Is that there is a constant attack out there by different organizations. The Alamo. That's America at its core, at its purest. Remember the Alamo? We grew up with that. And now they're talking about making it a United Nations educational site. So they're gonna deem control of it over to the United Nations. And of course, if you follow the United Nations, one of the issues we have in our education system is this Common Core crap. I'll just call it what it is. Have you read? I mean, I have one daughter who I've got one in college, one who just graduated high school, and I've got another one who's in junior high. And she comes and tells me that what she has to do at school, and it's just infuriating. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Common Core is the next step in the socialist agenda. When 2 + 2 can equal 5, and they get a good grade because they tried hard, that's just preposterous. Some of the reading material, they're literally reading books in some of the states that make the 50 Shades of Grey look like a nursery rhyme. It's just, and then in Texas they left out the Second Amendment in its entirety. They just talked strictly about the militia and not the individual. I mean, Common Core really is going to be the next step in taking over this country and dumbing down our children. Over at Joe for America, we take there's a place.
Are you there?
Called EAG News, and they're really hot on Common Core, and it's very yes. Hello?
Yeah, Joe, we're here. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. So, But EAG News, they do a great job in educating people on Common Core, what's going on in each of the states. I recommend people going to their site, if not their site, my site, because we talk about it on a regular basis, trying to energize the base to get out there and make sure Common Core does not get instituted in their schools.
Absolutely. And a lot of people just, like you said, we're working 2-3 jobs, and unfortunately, your kids go to school and, very, very rarely, I mean, if I can sit down and spend a couple hours a week with my daughter doing homework, I'm grateful that all 3 of my daughters are brilliant. They're actually smarter than their father. They'll teach me something. But you sit down and you read this stuff that they're doing, it's just unbelievable. I mean, I've seen it actually. You can go on the web. You don't have to go far. You don't have to. There was one student who's actually, they brought a questionnaire home to their parents and had to interview their parents, and they got an F because they were and the teacher wrote that on the paper. They were too conservative. So.
Well, not to mention there was
I don't know if you remember this, Joe, but about 2 or 3 days ago, I wrote a column on Joe for America, and I included a video that was from MSNBC. Now, obviously, I'm picking low-hanging fruit because we all know MSNBC is a liberal place to go. But my point in including this video was not that it was liberal, but that they had, as far as I'm concerned, they had kind of slipped and come out of the Marxist closet and actually, I thought, kind of shown their hand, because the verbiage in this particular video was just flat out saying, and I'm using their point of view here, we need to realize that children don't belong to their parents. They belong to the community, and they actually use the word collective.
Yes, I saw that.
Children belong to the collective, not their parents. And I was watching this going, oh my God, they're actually saying it.
Yep.
They're not hiding anymore.
Yep.
And they're willing to put those words in the public. And I was really shocked by it. I mean, I know they believe that, but they're emboldened by this Common Core being out there and in the public schools. They are so emboldened, Jeff and Joe, that they are saying it and recording it and having a public record of it and disseminating it. And I'm going, holy mackerel. They're not even afraid anymore that people will find out their agenda. Either that, or they're convinced that people don't know the history of words like collective or phrases like, hey, kids don't belong to their parents.
Yeah.
Whereas anybody with a tertiary knowledge of history understands what those phrases mean and where they come from.
Yep, absolutely, and that's the thing. I think it's more of the fact that look, they've got anthropologists, sociologists, psychiatrists on their payroll. I mean, so they got a pulse of what's going on, and they know that there's a small group of patriots such as ourselves, but they're demonizing us, but the rest of the people just kind of follow along with it, and it's that classic thing. If you say it over and over again, people will start believing you. And to your point, I think that they actually think that they're at a position now in which they can just continually say it and then get people to believe in it, that the government, some institution, can take care of your kids better than you can and make those decisions.
Oh, exactly.
And
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, one of the questions down in Tennessee stated, please, in an essay, inform us why President Obama is the greatest president ever. You were supposed to answer that, because a lot of people on the Common Core side want to push back and say it's not of the federal government. It's not of this administration that's pushing it. They are working hard to say it's not of us, meaning Obama and this administration, but it very much is.
Sure.
And it's not about the children anymore. It's kind of like the union members up in Wisconsin who talked about it's for the kids, but they're willing to let 10 of their teachers be fired so they could just keep their Viagra. Really, it's for the kids, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much misinformation out there and so many low information voters out there, and just a lot of people that are so frustrated and working so hard just to make ends meet that it's hard for them to pay attention. And I'm giving them a little bit of excuse, but at the same time taking it away. You know, they're going to wake up and find out the country is a whole lot different than what they grew up in, and we really need to keep. You need to stay on air. Rodney's got to get into Congress, and I got to keep with my website, and we need to build up an army of other people. Get them out there, get them focused, and get them involved and engaged.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we had Jake Danish Vesky that was on. He wrote a book. He was on last week, and we talked about. He came from communist Russia. He actually, his family, escaped the communist regime when he was younger. But he explained, as a kid growing up in that, what he saw, and then he drew the correlations between what he's seeing here and what he saw there. And it was just for him, it's flashbacks. He was saying this is insane, what they're doing, and you're absolutely right about I'm here in Wisconsin, so I was all caught up in a lot of that, and a lot of things that weren't being reported is schools were being shut down because teachers were going up to protest and they were still getting paid to go up.
I was there too.
Yeah, I mean it was unbelievable that and of course you had our state congressional, the Dem and stuff. They all escaped to Illinois to hide out, because they didn't want to face it, and so they didn't get their way.
You also had the doctors there. You also had doctors giving.
Seems that
we also had doctors there giving permission slips for these teachers to miss school. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, it was all sorts of things. It was. It was crazy. I mean, I will tell you this too. There was, one of the things that they were doing up there, and it wasn't really reported, is that some knucklehead was taking live rounds. Now, there was a very small group of conservatives that were there. I mean, we were basically, definitely a minority. And there were some knuckleheads that were even taking live rounds, and they were throwing them on the Capitol grounds, and then of course the police, that's when it started to get serious, when people were making threats like that. And it's crazy because every rally that I've ever gone to, of course we're vocal and stuff, but we're not violent. We're not destructive. We don't destroy. We don't smash windows. We don't do all that stuff. But for some reason, when you get a bunch of the left together, they start breaking windows. It's crazy. It's just insane that the things they do.
Well, the state capitol was trashed. I forget what it cost to repair that. And while I was there for about 2 weeks reporting on it and talking about it. I actually ended up getting a couple phone calls back in my home in Ohio, threatening my wife and son. I actually ended up leaving there. And, I filed a police report and FBI and everything like that because, a lot of these guys, people that are going to call your home for the most part are all talk. But, they try to scare you. They try to intimidate you because they don't want change. When that happens, you're getting something done. You're worrying them because you're speaking truth and it scares them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now in the great state of Wisconsin, I mean, our governor is just incredible. He's doing things that are just amazing for the state. Things are turning around here, and the fact that he is creating jobs and doing the things that he's doing. But one of the things, I don't like about some of the laws that were passed is now apparently at the state capitol that if you have 2 or more people together, they can actually arrest you. As if you're protesting, and if you're watching the protest, they can actually arrest you. That's just insane. I don't know what Governor Walker, what they were thinking when they passed that law, but now you can't do any, and that all came about by the protests that were going on, during the fight and everything.
Well, let's keep talking about Wisconsin for a second. One good thing that did happen when we're talking about states' rights. I know Rebecca Kleefisher, Lieutenant Governor, and Scott Walker, you guys have been stealing a lot of business from Illinois, from Michigan. Once some of these laws got into effect, some of your small businesses have been coming back to the state and propping up the state pretty well lately, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This state is, I live literally right over the border of Illinois, and I will tell you that there's a section of where we live it's all Illinois. We commute down to work and everything into Chicago with the mass transit, but we're taking jobs left and right. We had Uline move out of Illinois, which is a huge packaging, manufacturer supply company. They're moving out. Are you
near Janesville or?
No, we're actually in Kenosha. right? Literally, we're
Oh
right.
my God, you're in
Kenosha.
Kenosha?
Yep. Unbelievable.
I grew up in Aurora. You know where that is.
Oh, I know exactly where Aurora is. So it's phenomenal. I mean, our governor is just, obviously with the concealed carry, he passed that. He just passed a law. You don't hear about this on national news. He just passed a law that allows Wisconsin residents to go anywhere in the United States and buy a firearm. You no longer have to have it shipped back to Wisconsin and in the paperwork. You can actually purchase a firearm anywhere in the United States as a Wisconsin resident.
My condolences next Monday night for the Bears kicking your ass.
Now. That's not. I don't know. Cutler's out. We don't get into sports on this show, but I will tell you, Cutler's out. But you know what, though? With Cutler being out, they might beat us.
I'm just kidding you. I'm preparing for a good ass kick.
No, they might beat us with Cutler out. I've always said that Cutler. Well, we don't talk about sports here at the Midnight.
I'm definitely preparing for a good ass kick. There's a stark contrast these days between Illinois and Wisconsin. And your governor's going to be out here in California, and he's going to be speaking at a place called FOA, and it's a group. It stands for Friends of Abe, and it's a group in Hollywood that is it used to be a secret club of Hollywood Republicans, and I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. And it was a group started by a guy that I met originally in Chicago. I grew up in Aurora, which is just outside of Chicago. I've actually lived in California for far longer than I've lived in Illinois. But a guy named Gary Sinise, who is a national treasure, started a Republican club in Hollywood called Friends of Abe. And Scott Walker's going to be out talking to FOA in a couple weeks. So it's going to be great. And I'm sure the house will be packed. And I'm going to bring up, I didn't realize, I had never heard of this issue of not being able to go to the Capitol and, protest. And I'm sure that grew out of the violence and the taking over the Capitol and all the shenanigans that went on. But I'm going to bring that up, but I'll get an answer for you, Jeff.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was because, the millions and it was our state capital, state capital in Wisconsin, Madison and stuff. It's just incredible. It's beautiful. And they destroyed it. It looked like Sandy came through there and just wiped it out. It was an embarrassment. And
what did they accomplish?
Nothing. They absolutely nothing. I don't know. I think it, like I said, what happened was that at first a lot of people were for the protests and the teachers, but then they started to look at the issues, and that, I'll have to tell you, our media here did an excellent job. We have WISN up in Milwaukee, and they did an excellent job explaining the issues. And once the people, and for those that are listening that don't live in Wisconsin, one of the issues obviously was the health care. Now, with the teachers unions, the unions themselves were providing health care and setting the rates. And so when Governor Walker came in and said, no, you can't do that anymore. You can't. It's basically price fixing. Right off the bat, once he stopped that, he said, the union members, you can go out and get your own insurance. You don't have to buy it from the union or whatever. When he did that, it literally saved the state of Wisconsin over instantly $100 million a year. $100 million a year. Because they eliminated the union-controlled healthcare system. That's how much money the union was making off of the teachers. Now, once that message got out into the public, it was amazing. The tides turned. And then, of course, then I think the other part of it, Joe, and you witnessed it when you were there, when we started to see all of these people from Illinois coming in that weren't part of our fight, when they started to come into the state, I think the general populace has said, look, stay in your state. One thing you'll learn about Wisconsin is that we like people to come up from Illinois to come and visit on the weekends, but go home.
No, they don't. That's a lie.
No, we want your money.
That's a lie, Jeff.
You're right, Jeff. They
Stop
were
lying.
busting.
You may not lie on your own show.
Like I said, I live right on the border, and it's hilarious because because Illinois drivers are known to be a little fast. On Friday, on Friday,
we want to get out of there.
They want to get out of the state, exactly. But on Friday, you will see there's actually a state police post right there on the border, and you will literally see nothing but Illinois cars pulled over for the next 10 miles going into. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
I was just about to say, the tide probably turned in favor of Scott Walker when people started coming from Illinois to be on the Union side. That's when the public in Wisconsin said, we've had enough.
I'm a firm believer of that. That's when it started. When they had that massive rally at the very end, and you had all of the SEIO people and stuff coming in from Illinois. I'm telling you, there was a lot of people who were saying, stay in Chicago. We don't want you polluting us up here. Just stay down there. And
there's no doubt in my mind. We'll put up with the union stealing $100 million a year, but we're not putting up with people from Illinois.
From Illinois, that's right. Say, well, you know how it works.
That is really rich. I love that.
You're absolutely right. The hotel I was staying at, they actually had the SCIU guys there, and every time I walked down, they'd all look at me and scowl because I was there obviously in support of Walker, but they were also busing him in from as far as Los Angeles.
Oh.
I mean, you had a lot of different union people there really pushing hard because Wisconsin, that was a make or break statement when that happened. And it really was going to set the tone for the rest of the year and what can happen. So I'm just very happy that Wisconsin stood firm and made things happen. And, I'm hoping a lot of other states will fall that way. Ohio tried it. Kasich backed off a little bit and lost control, but there's still opportunities out there for the states to take back their states and work on their behalf. So it's a great thing that it happened.
Yep. I mean, there's no better time to be in West. I mean, this is our economy's doing great. Here you go. Tell you, first time in the history of the legislature where Governor Scott Walker actually cut people's property taxes. Did a across the board property cut tax, and just said, and then on top of that, he did another tax cut to all of the citizenry here, and he said that, he's not going to give it back to us in payroll. Our payroll taxes actually went down in the state of Wisconsin. Right now they're at 3%, but they went down a little bit less. They're estimating it's going to give you about $300. Well, Governor Walker, being the fiscal person that he is, one of the things he did, he goes, I'm not going to, the Dems are like, well, let's give it to them in their paychecks. Let's just not do. Walker's like, no, let's give it to them at the end of the year, so they can see how much money we actually are giving back to them. Not, and the Dems were, the libs were all, well, we need to spread it out and stuff. They kind of hide it. But, Walker was like, no, what we'll do is when they file their taxes, everybody will get a one-time check or credit back. I mean, you hear any states in the union doing that? Cutting property taxes and giving money back?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time to be in Wisconsin. Walker, he had to put me on his press and stuff. It's Walker or Wisconsin's open for business. It is, and we are seeing businesses come back to Wisconsin, which is just incredible. Now, unfortunately, in Kenosha, because of the General Motors shenanigans and all of that, we lost one of the large. We had Snap-on was here, and we had they're still here, but they're not manufacturing. We had Case was here. Heavy industrial manufacturer Case, and then we also had the Chrysler engine plant was here. Well, now as I drive down my street and stuff, I see 5 city blocks of nothing but a concrete pad, which was a state-of-the-art engine manufacturing company, and it's just heartbreaking to see that. I mean, this thing, they didn't get rid of it because it's old. They just got rid of it because of some of the dealings. And now we're finding out that, when General Motors got bailed out, they were told that they had to drop some of their production lines, like Pontiac and all of those guys. And it's just unbelievable. But hey, that's the way it works. It's capitalism. But unfortunately, that's not capitalism. That was because of someone didn't pay their favors to the administration. So.
No, capitalism in its truest form works. I always believe you have to have a moral compass when it comes to capitalism, because some of these guys do get a little overboard. But it's not for me to say one way or another. But ultimately, when capitalism is working, that means the government's out of your business. But unfortunately, right now, with all the regulations that are brought on by Obamacare through the EPA, everyone wants to say we're in a capitalist society, but I don't see it anymore. There's too many favors owed here. There's too many regulations here. There's too many lobbyists there. And your small businessman, your middle class businessman, where we create all the real jobs in America, are being regulated out of business. And that's where Wisconsin has stepped up a little bit, but ultimately that's where the states need to step up and tell EPA specifically to back the hell off. Not to mention USDA. I mean, they're another one that's really hurting livestock. Who pays $6 for a pound of chicken? I mean, my God, 10, 15 years ago, it was $1.69, but now you're up towards $5, $6, $7, $8 wherever you're at in the country. So I mean, a lot of these regulations that they're imposing on us, and these are departments that there's no oversight from we the people. Congress has offloaded their responsibilities to these different departments because ultimately they don't want to have to deal with it, but they've given the power over American people to departments that we have no control over.
Absolutely. You mentioned the EPA there, and with the the EPA, a lot of people we talked about this about 2 days ago, and it now hit the media. They're shutting down Doe Run in Missouri, which is the number one lead mine in the United States. They actually produce 80% of all our lead products here in the United States. Well, Doe Run is shutting down because, and I don't know what Governor Nixon was thinking, but he basically vetoed. There was a bill in the legislature that passed. He vetoed it, and what the bill basically was, it was to limit the amount of damages that the EPA and other individuals can get against Doe Run. And so what they did is that he vetoed it, so now it's unlimited. So Doe Run just said, well, look, we can't, I mean, we're going to have every attorney represent, you're going to have every attorney from the EPA suing them for one thing or another, and, kind of like the asbestos industry. And now Doe Run said they're just going to shut down at the first of in December. They're going to cease operations. So, that's critical for a lot of things. The big thing that I'm concerned about is the fact that we're going to lose, our lead for ammunition, and everybody's accused this president of being, we all know he's anti-gun. So they're saying that this is a backdoor move, on his part to limit ammunition here in the United States and stuff. So that's a great example, but I will tell you, here we go. I'm going to talk about Scott Walker again. When the government shut down and they took all the national parks and they shut them down, we have a few here in the state of Wisconsin. The governor told the federal government absolutely not. He's going to keep them open. He's going to pay the park rangers. These are lands that belong to the citizens of Wisconsin, not to the federal government. So he refused the order and did a gubernatorial kind of executive order to keep all those parks and everything open for the citizens. So there's another example of where our governor, he gets it. He understands who he works for. And
it's amazing. If you ask 99 out of 100 people under the age of even 40, they will tell you that the federal government is absolutely 100% in authority over the states, and they have no idea that the states actually created the federal government. The states created the government.
Absolutely.
And people don't know that. I mean, a lot of people don't know that.
Yep.
And hardly anyone knows that the Senate was not originally elected by the people. That, in fact, it was elected by state legislatures. Now, there's another. I mean, you talk about a massive power grab by the federal government, away from the states, that is, when they amended the Constitution to be elected by the majority of people rather than the state legislature. Because now you've got all that power taken away. Well, a lot of the power taken away from the House of Representatives, or at least diluted, instead of them having so much power. And I mean, the framers called them the people's house.
Yep.
They gave them 2-year terms so the people could quickly remedy federal power if it became too onerous. They could quickly remedy any laws that became too onerous or became too.
Yep.
If it gave the federal government, a central government, too much power, they could quickly choose to not fund those bills. They could quickly vote, quickly meaning within a 2-year period, vote to, get a new majority in the House of Representatives, perhaps.
Absolutely.
And now, people just assume, well, it's federal government and the states, they come in second.
Well,
and it's amazing.
Well, that's part of the education that we do here is that we, like last night, we said, look, the states still have a power. It's called, Article 5 of the Constitution. They can call it constitutional, regardless. If your administration wants to impose its laws, we'll just use Obamacare because it's such a great example of the overreaching of this government. You want to impose a law on its people, but then you want to turn around and your significant donors, you want to give them a pass on it. And then your congressional members and even your president who endorsed it, he won't even sign up for it. They want to pass on that and they want to keep their Cadillac plans. It's funny you said bronze, gold, or whatever. I was reading them the other day and none of them compared to the insurance that I used to have. I was one of those people that were told that, have to go on Obamacare if I want to, continue with insurance. But, but one of the things that a lot of people just don't realize is that when government gets that far out of control, we have this thing called Article 5 where you only have to get 2/3 of the states to come together and say, we're calling a constitutional convention and we are going to pass X law. Now, obviously last night with, I Am American with Lou and those guys, they're talking about, starting with getting the government to do a balanced budget amendment. Very simple. You have to produce a budget. You have to produce a balanced budget every year, just like we do every week, every day of our lives. And, start there. And you ought to hear all of the conversations I've had with people after that show where they did not know that was actually in the Constitution of the United States. Had no clue that was there. So,
well, yeah, Lou's doing a great job educating people and getting out there. They've gone to Ohio, Michigan. I think they have a tour set up to where they're going to come to Wisconsin and speak to a couple different groups up there. Anytime I've given him my website to get any information out about his group and what he wants to try to achieve, because he's a true patriot. He really wants to help serve and get America back on track.
Absolutely. No, great. Like I said, I was sitting here with Sandy and we were talking about, is it that far gone? Should we just start, should we get an RV, start packing up, start, filling it up and just head somewhere out west or somewhere where there's no one around, and then I, got into their website and started seeing and I actually feel like there is hope. And they do have momentum. I think they were saying as of last night, they had 9 states that have already committed to a constitutional convention for a budget amendment. So, I think Ohio, he was saying Ohio is coming up here at the first of the year, pretty soon where they're actually going to vote on it as well and ratify it. And it's looking like
there's an amazing amount of stats in terms of state legislatures that are conservative, that are Republican. There's a lot of Republican governors. There's a lot of purple states, and there is a lot of blue states that are really pissed off about Obamacare. You can really take what is going on with Obamacare and you can parlay that into a lot. I really do believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have these guys coming out and calling people like Ted Cruz and Ben Carson and Joe Wurzelbacher racists because they oppose Obamacare. I mean, something as innocuous, something as far as racism as, that you can get, like as health care. It's a health care bill. And you're going to call somebody a racist because you oppose it? Well, when Talking Points goes out like that, you know they are in full panic mode. And when they're in full panic mode, it's the Alinsky playbook.
Yep.
And you know they're on the run.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And 2014 is not a long way away. And this movement that Lou's got going is in its infancy, and they've got such a great response already. I mean, I didn't think they could do so well in such a short time, and I'm really glad.
Yeah.
But man, it is not going to take much once they get that train rolling down the track.
Well, yeah, it's wrong. I mean, how can you argue the fact of, it's a balanced budget, and I think they were saying something like 36 states or 37 already have balanced budget amendments for the state, so it's only natural for them to request that of our federal government. But my whole concern is that when I know Rand Paul is wanting to. He's going to be blocking the appointment of the new Treasury Secretary, or not Treasury, the Fed Reserve Secretary.
Right.
And he's saying that he's going to block it until they open up the books.
Joe and I have written extensively on the fact that the Fed is actively, and I'm going to use a word that I want everyone listening to pretend I was using a different word, okay? The Fed is actively screwing us, okay? Oh. It is, the Federal Reserve is a private company. When you say the phrase Federal Reserve, doesn't that sound like a department of government?
Yep.
It's like when you say the Better Business Bureau. It sounds like a government department, doesn't it? Well, it's not. The Federal Reserve is a private company, and it's owned by a group of private banks. Now, would you expect for a minute that they would operate in individual citizens' interests or the interests of the private banks that own them?
Yeah, I mean,
it is obvious.
I was going to say you're being
the answer to that.
Yeah,
the answer to that is as obvious as the nose on your face.
Yep.
And the results of, I don't know how many years is it, 100 years? Have they been around 100 years? Oh, or 80 years? I don't know. A long time they've been around. And what is the results? Take a look at the results. That's all you need to do. It's a very simple historical analysis. The debt, the value of the dollar, the success story of the banking industry, and the financial enslavement. Maybe I'm using the wrong word there. Help me out with the verbiage.
No,
I'll just say the financial enslavement.
No, it is.
Of the American people, in that wages are just suppressed by virtue of what's been done to the dollar.
Yeah, I mean,
it's unbelievable that we put up with it.
Well, it is. And it's one of these things where, like I said, when I for your information, December 23rd, 1913 is when the Federal Reserve Act was actually.
So 101 years, or 100 years.
Yep.
There you go.
So, I mean, one of our first guests, the very first interview we did was with Ellen Brown. She wrote the book on the web of debt and the private banking solution, and we talked about this extensively in the history of the Federal Reserve. You're being too kind by calling them a business.
I'm running for office, Jeff.
I got you. Well, I'll say it for you. They're a cartel. I don't care what you say. A lot of people don't realize. You had J.P. Morgan Chase. You had all of the. You had J.P. Morgan, you had, the Rockefellers, Rothschild, you had these are guys that were mortal enemies. The stories about their battles with each other and to one up or usurp each other is it would be a very interesting movie or a very interesting story. And for some reason, these mortal enemies came together on Jekyll Island and they created the Federal Reserve. And they did it with the blessing of a few very key players in the Senate, very powerful players in the Senate. And they strategized. They did it on December 23rd, where most of the Senate, the Senate wasn't in recess, but most of the or Congress wasn't in recess because everybody was going home for Christmas. That's why they passed it. And there's a lot of arguments there in conspiracy theory that they actually didn't ratify it because they didn't have the votes, but I guess they had a quorum, and you probably know more about parliamentary procedure than I do, so they were able to do it. But yeah, I mean, the Federal Reserve basically lends, for those that don't know, they are a private corporation or cartel. They're owned by the banks or ran by the banks, and they basically loan money to the United States, our money. They loan our money to the United States, and they charge us interest for it. And, an exuberant amount of interest. And now they're able to manipulate. That's the other thing. Now they manipulate the bond market. We talked about that last night, that there hasn't been a legitimate purchaser of our debts or our bonds in several months. China and Japan's pretty much backed out. And it's basically the Federal Reserve is buying up the bonds with our money because they just print it. And then they're pumping a ton of money into the economy, which if you are a studier of history, you will know that's what happened to Germany. And that's what caused them to crash. And then, of course, you had a polarizing figure come up to power, and we know the history and where that all led, which is runs parallel to what we're seeing now. It's kind of scary.
Hey, Jeff, I got two things for you.
The
go
only
ahead, Joe.
question left is who gets marched into the ovens this time?
Yeah, not me. I can tell you. I'll be singing "God Bless America." I'm not submitting.
Let me give you two things. One, let's make it a little bit more tangible to the audience. We throw names out there like the Rockefellers and Goldman Sachs, and that's all well and good. But I have an economist that teaches down in San Antonio, St. Mary's, and she wrote an article just a couple days ago at Joe for America, and she was talking about $100 back in 1914. And if you go to a government website, and I don't have it in front of me right this second, but you can find it, like I said, at the website, joeforamerica.com, is the government website will say that it's worth $2,600 now. So $100 in 1915, the government website, through all the different little variations they put in there, saying it's $2,600. But once you actually take everything out, it's closer to $9,400. You talk about inflation and you talk about paying for things at obscene rates. This is what the Federal Reserve has brought us to.
Yes.
And that's why it's so terribly bad for us, for mainstream America. You hear on Fox and MSNBC and all these other places the stock market's doing good, but that does not equate to us middle class people. They're printing money left and right, but it's going to huge businesses, very rich people. But there's no trickle down on that one. It doesn't help us. So the stock market can do all well and good all at once, but it really doesn't do anything for America. And that's something people really need to understand when they're sitting there listening to that. I get in a lot of arguments and a lot of people sit there and tell me how great the economy is doing. But I travel around the country and I see the people in the houses that are up for sale and the people working on 2-3 part-time jobs. The economy is not bounced back, no matter how much the media wants to crutch up Obama and his administration. It is terrible. And anyways, I'm venting here now.
No.
Secondly, fortunately, I have a 7-month-old daughter. My wife has to get up and work in the morning, and I have to jump off here. But I would love to come back on your show again. And be part of it, but I only had a certain amount of time tonight, and I have to jump off now.
Sure. Well, Joe, man, we appreciate it. We'd love to have you and stuff. And before you get off, do we have permission to repost your information on our site and your blogs and your articles?
Oh, absolutely, in full or aggregate, however you want. It's all about spreading information. I don't need the credit. I just want the information out there.
All right. Hey, Joe, thank you very much. Thanks for taking time out of your. I know you're, we're a little shop, and I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and your evening and away from your family and eventually if you're ever in Wisconsin or whatever, look us up. I'd love to sit down with you, take you out to dinner and everything. But take care. For all those that know, Joe the Plumber.
My wife is from Wisconsin. I come to Wisconsin about 10, 15 times, and I take all your guys' fish home with me back to Ohio.
Well, yeah, I'm a deer hunter, so we'll have to stock you up on deer. So once again, this is Joe the Plumber, Samuel Joseph Wurzelbacher. Wurzelbacher, did I say that right?
You got it right, brother. All
right, man. So hey, take care of yourself, and we'll be talking to each other soon.
Sounds great.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
Be well.
See you, Joe.
So
as promised,
incredible.
Joe the Plumber delivered.
Joe the Plumber delivered. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. I mean, it's, it just, we know that we're affecting change here. We know that our podcasts are getting out there. Like I said, we when we first started, we had 2 listeners, and that might have just been, friends or family. And now we have several, between the downloads, between the live refeeds, between iTunes, and I don't know if since last we talked, we were talking about getting syndication and everything, and we Xbox Music, which is a huge for Windows 8, because now you can get us on any Windows 8 compatible device, streamed right to your desktop. So I mean, we are growing, and then of course with iHeartRadio. So and the fact that we're able to bring the caliber of interviews that we're doing, Rodney, you're no slouch yourself, my friend. Don't, I know you were saying, I'll bring Joe the Plumber. I was happy to have you as well. I mean,
I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. There's, I like everyone saw Joe in 2008 and saw what happened with him and saw how he was just thrust into the zeitgeist. And at first he was trying to be used by Joe Biden and the Democrats, and then John McCain tried to use him, and everyone was, and it's funny when I got to know him, and I got to know him through a television pilot, oddly enough. And it's funny to have personal conversations with him and get to know him personally, because then I heard the real story. Because the real story, and next time if you have him on again, ask him about the real story of Joe the Plumber, because it's hysterical. I mean, it's just really funny. How after the incident with Barack Obama, which is funny enough, he's minding his own business in his front yard playing football with his son, and here comes the president.
Yeah.
And Joe's an outspoken guy. I mean, if you can't run roughshod over Joe Wurzelbacher, because he'll give you what for.
Yeah.
And the president was basically acting cocky in front of him, and so Joe was like, "Hey, what's your deal? Who died and made you president?" Basically. Yeah. And Joe tells a good story about that, and I had no idea.
I
had no idea that for a long time after the presidential debates, nothing happened to Joe Wurzelbacher. He went back to being Joe Wurzelbacher, the plumber. And then all of a sudden, his life got turned upside down. People started illegally investigating his life.
Yeah.
People accessed his private information illegally. He won lawsuits against people who went in and got his tax information, his, all kinds of private information on him was accessed so they could smear him. It was really unbelievable. And it was shocking, the lengths that they went to smear a guy who was not even in politics. He was just a guy.
who actually.
Jeff, I am telling you, it is a look inside the fascist world of the liberal Democrat at a very local level.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're witnessing. You know, that was one thing that my family always told me. Oh, you got to run for office and stuff. And I'm just like, I can't put my family through that. You know, I can't.
Yeah.
I just can't. You know, my hat's off to anybody that runs. I mean, I'll stay on my show, and I'm already getting. You know, the 3 short weeks that I've been on the air, I've already had one death threat, which, you know, of course, what it is. You know, email. Anybody can type up an email, but I've already had people attack me and stuff, and just because. But I'm like you. You know, I think we talked about this the other day when we were actually talking on the phone, and you said something to me that actually, you know, resonated with me, is that, look, do what you're doing and basically, you know, march on, soldier on. Don't, who cares what their opinion of, as long as you're doing what you believe in, do it. And that was one thing. So I had to turn that off, because this is part of this industry that's new to me, is the fact that, you know, is the personal attacks, and, you know, they come. I mean, I've already seen them, you know, but it is what it is, you know, but we've got a message, and it's bigger than me. It's bigger than you, you know, and we have to get it out there at whatever cost we can do. So
you know, there was, I've done a lot of work. They wouldn't let me into the service. I come from a family of service people, and my grandfather, my nephews, everybody. And they wouldn't let me into the service because I have a bunch of metal, METAL, in my legs from being a ne'er-do-well when I was younger. And I just couldn't get in the service because too many pins and rods and broken up bones and stuff. And it was really disappointing when I was young. So I did the next best thing. I went to the USO, and I was in the entertainment side of politics for 25 years. And I ended up getting to do a lot of cool things. I get to go all over the world entertaining people and making bad television shows and meeting a lot of cool people and entertaining troops and whatnot. And, you know, one of the things I got to do is meet people that have done things that I can't do, and that is march across Europe in their bare feet and kill people. And Jeff, they did stuff that, thank God, we'll never have to do, hopefully. And when you think about that, you just go, you know what? I think I can take a few death threats through the email, you know?
Yep, absolutely.
And if I talk about it too much, I'll start to cry. Because when you hear stories from the actual people that have done that, it's always coming from people that are so old. They've given up the facade that they've held for 60 years, maybe 70 years, that they grew after they came back from those experiences. Because there's only one rule about war, the war club, and that's you don't talk about war club.
Yeah.
And then after about 60 or 70 years, you might talk about it. And if you hear that talk, you realize, yeah, maybe I should get out there. And maybe I should take a few of those arrows. And that's what you and I are talking about, taking a few of those arrows.
Absolutely.
And you can do it.
Oh, no, I'm going
to do it.
Yeah, we've got to do it. I mean, someone's got to do it. I mean, we have to change this. I mean, based upon, you know, you're reading The Economist and reading all, you know, we're on a very fast slope to the destruction of this great democracy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we can't continue to do what we're doing And some of the economists, I've heard 3 years, we're going to have issues. I've heard 5 years. But the scary part is that they are actually putting, the economists that don't have an agenda, they are actually putting a timeline on the destruction of America and the crippling, of America. I mean, we're basically a joke in the world, right now with everything that's going on. Thank you, Mr. President, for isolating us from the rest of the world. I mean, today they just came out and said that Putin, Vladimir Putin is actually more influential than President Barack Obama on the world stage. That's never happened in the history. That should wake people up. That's never happened in the history of this country. Our president's always been the leader of the world and of the free world. And now you have Putin, who's now taken that spot away from us.
Can you imagine how long these? Like Putin is an ex-KGB guy, and and I don't know everything there is to know about the KGB and how the inner workings of the new state of Russia has been operating for the past 30 years, and I'm not sure anybody really knows, but I think I know this. Can you imagine how long these guys have been waiting for this moment with grit, with clenched teeth?
Oh, yeah.
Just waiting to get, back to a status of leadership and power in the world. Do you think that they're going to go quietly? Hell no. They're going to take advantage of this time. And you saw it with the debacle over Syria. You saw how Putin, took advantage of that little wrinkle where Obama, had no idea what to do and what to say. Who's he backing? I'm going to do this. I'm going to bomb this day. I'm going to back this faction. And,
see, I think Putin. I've always said this. They're chess players. We play checkers here in the United States. These guys are chess players, so they're looking at moves long ahead of what we're looking at a 2-year cycle or 4-year cycle or instant gratification. And one of the theories that I floated out there, and I've got some really good feedback from people that are actually, fairly well-known columnists on the world, in the alternative media, and they said that they never thought of it that way. But my theory is that Putin knew that if America started a war with Syria, one thing that this country does and does very well is no matter how bad it is, no matter how horrible things are going, if we are at war with an enemy that's clear and stuff, this country will rally. This country will come behind its leaders and they will do everything that they need to do. Now, granted, we're and I think that's why there was a big push. Oh, look at the children, and that's as horrific as it is. And I think Putin saw that on the face and said, well, wait a minute. He also knew that this country had to make a financial decision within a couple weeks. And it's that classic Wag the Dog movie, with Dustin Hoffman and those guys, where, my theory is that, our government, Obama wanted to go to war to remove the distractions of the NSA, the IRS, all of those issues. And also, there wouldn't be a Congress in the world, in the history of the United States that would shut down in the middle of an active conflict. And I think Putin, I really do. I think Putin saw this because he's a pretty cagey, smart man. Saw this and he took that away from this president. He took it right away from him. Said, nope, you're not. You're going to face your demons, and you're going to have. I'm not going to give you an opportunity to distract the people anymore. Now, he didn't do it because he cares about us. Don't take me the wrong way. Putin doesn't care about. He called us our exception. He's making fun of our exceptionalism here in the United States. But I think that whole Syrian ploy was more than just avoiding or to protect their interests. I think it was more of the fact to make us face our problems, our demons here in the States. I think Putin is pretty crafty that way. And
well, it seems like it seems mighty obvious to me that time and time again, especially in that region of the world, Obama's backing the wrong horse. And it's always under the guise of, well, this is a terrible dictator, and we gotta get rid of him. Well, you know what? It's hard to say you're wrong. Mubarak, yes, he is a terrible dictator. But let's take a look at Mubarak. Let's take a look at Gaddafi. Let's take a look at, Bashar. Yeah, terrible dictators, bad guys. We know that. But who the hell are these other guys we're arming? Are they worse? Are they going to be friends? Are they going to do anything at all to improve the situation? If the answer is, I don't know, then don't go arming them. And clearly the answer was, I don't know.
Yep.
And it's really kind of a no-brainer when it comes down to that, to me. Now, yeah, I don't have all the intelligence, and I don't have all the military generals in a room consulting and giving me counsel. True. I'm a guy running for Congress in California giving my 2 bits. But it seems mighty obvious to me that after 2 or 3 incidents, you can look at it and say, we're backing a bunch of people who we don't know who the hell they are. And especially when we have a very good example in Egypt, where the military took a look at the people who won the quote-unquote election, and they said, you know what? We're going to nullify that election because this Muslim Brotherhood is not the way we're going to go. And they basically made Obama look like a complete fool, if you ask me.
Well,
when they got rid of the Muslim Brotherhood and said, I think we'll have another election. Let's try that one again.
Well, the fact of the matter is, and we did talk about this, the Sunni and the Shia and all this. Now, one of the common threads amongst all of these heads of state that we've deposed or helped depose, or and everything, that they're all on the Shia side, and of course Saudi Arabia and everything is on the Sunni side. So there's a huge issue there. But one of the things that I hear common is that that Obama's a Muslim. I don't believe that any more than I just don't believe it. I think he's socialist because I have I have his writings, I have his speech, and I know who his mentors were, and I know who taught the president and everything. So I'm more that he's on that track of socialism, communism here in the United States, more so than converting us to all Islam. But the reality of it is in those countries where we deposed, you're absolutely correct in the assertion that if you don't know what the outcome is, the first thing they teach you in law school, well, they teach you a lot of things, but one of the first things they teach a lawyer is you don't ever ask a question unless you already know the answer. You just don't do it. It's just common, trial case law practices. You don't ask a question unless you already know what the answer is going to be. And what's crazy is that this administration, either they forgot that, like if they don't know what it's going to, if they eliminate these powers, these dictators or these heads of state, what's the power vacuum going to look like? If they don't know what the answer of that is, then they, number one, they surely shouldn't do it. But then number two, on the Syria issue, actually the generals, the head of our military, what's left of them, he just fired nine this year, top brass flag officers, but what was left of them, I remember the congressional hearings where he's standing up there in front of Congress, and one of our top brass is sitting there in Congress saying, we don't have a plan for Syria. And here we are, we're steaming our warships over there, and we're ready to, he's flat out telling Congress that we don't have a plan. I don't know what it looks like. And so that right there tells me that we got a president who's just completely out of touch of reality in certain regards.
Jeff, let me ask you this. Perhaps you have more information on this. Perhaps you don't. There are there's a lot of chatter, especially on the internet. I was, I'm not a guy that that speaks in a derogatory fashion about the internet. I'm a big fan of the internet. I was very fortunate in the early 90s to be exposed to the internet in a fashion that I was basically forced to learn everything there is to know about the internet in its infancy, because I was hired as a consultant to a really big corporation to basically teach them all about the internet, and I knew nothing about it. For some reason, they got the impression that I knew everything about it.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn everything there is to know about the internet, and it was really great because it served me well to this day. And I believe the internet is the absolute savior of freedom in this world.
Absolutely.
Especially in the United States.
And you know what? The FCC just said that they're going to do the fairness. They're looking at imposing the fairness doctrine on the internet. That actually
won't work.
Oh, there's no way it's going to work. But to your point, you know, when we talk about you look at where they're scared. That they are definitely scared of us. I mean, look at the president got up there and basically called bloggers, you know, traitors, or, you know. So you're absolutely correct. I get all my news, mainstream news as well. I get it from the internet. I don't watch TV. I'll do C-SPAN. That's the only news organization I actually watch. The
only thing I watch on television are shows that the presentation is better on my big 60-inch plasma. That's the only thing I watch on TV, is because of the presentation.
Sure.
Everything else is on the internet.
Absolutely.
On my computer, and it has been basically since 1994. I got my first email address in 1993. I still have it. I am the fortunate son of the internet, and people who put down the internet are afraid of the internet, and I pity them. I think I forgot what my point was.
Well, I'll bring you back.
Oh, I know. I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah.
There is what comes along with a burgeoning technology like the internet. People don't understand that at the turn of the century there was 200 car companies, car manufacturers in the United States. Mm-hmm. And then 20 years later, there was 4. I mean, that's the way it is when you have a new technology, okay? Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen to the internet, but the internet is still in its infancy. It's only been around, you know, for 20 years. It's just, you know, it's the way it is. And so, you know, there is going to be the Tuckers, and there is going to be, I shouldn't have said the Tucker, it was a great car. There is going to be the Edsels. I should have said the Edsel. There's going to be cars that don't make it. There's going to be weirdo cars, and there's going to be cars that you go, what the hell is that? And so there's a lot of chatter regarding the actions of government, and I'm sure some of them are just rumor, and I'm sure some of them are based in fact. And it is surrounding the actions of Homeland Security, FEMA, and other departments having to do with preparing for a civilian reaction to uprising. Now, there's legitimate reason for our federal government to be prepared for any sort of rioting, some sort of weird, violent uprising that the federal government should be prepared to put down if it is, necessary. But I'm talking about stories of Homeland Security building up an armed force that is greater than the military, armed to the teeth with a grand amount of high-end ammunition and automatic weapons, body bags, FEMA camps. I mean, you've read these stories, Jeff. I'm sure you have. And there's so many of these reports that come across my desk. And I'll just ask you, to what extent are they true? I mean, I've heard the speech where Obama says, he wants a civilian force that's as big as the military.
I was actually going to cue that up for you.
It always evolves into the talks of the brown shirts and this and that. And I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's not true. But I do want to know to what extent. Just give me your opinion about it.
Look, I mean, I've got friends that are in the military. I've got friends that are in law enforcement. I got friends that are part of the 3-letter alphabet agencies, and this is a topic that comes up. Now, one of the saving grace is this: everybody that I know in those agencies that I talk to, you're always going to have a knucklehead. I mean, look at the videos of the police officers throwing a woman into a concrete bench in Skokie, Illinois. Right, you're always going to have some jackass out there. I'll just say it, someone that. But when I have a conversation with these various friends of mine, and they're perfectly honest conversations, they're like, we would never do that. If the president did a gun ban, we would never come to your house and take your weapons. Now. To that point and I think that's where this government now there is a within Homeland Security. Obviously, you got the TSAs now expanding their reach. You have the Border Patrol now expanding their reach. There was a report. I haven't confirmed it. There was a report of Homeland Security spending about $80 million for a private police force. I haven't seen them. Well, I take that back. I have seen them. In Chicago, we had a gentleman who had a procedure done. You can go out to YouTube and you can actually see it. He got on a metro train, on a commuter train, and to tell you, it's amazing, the technology that they did. The government literally had armed agents on that train with their detectors, and they actually found the guy sitting in the seat. And he had just a normal medical procedure. And it set off alarms, and then you saw the Homeland Security police force come out. Now, so I have seen it. I have seen their police force, and we have the Dirksen Federal Building in Chicago, and when the WTO and all of them were meeting, I mean, they literally had within 2 city blocks of that, literally surrounded with Homeland Security police. So I know they're there. I do know they're there. This rumor about. I mean, let's just be honest here. I was talking to a military military personnel, and they were saying that in order to take a city if a city of the size of Chicago was to have an uprising, it would take well over 20,000 troops, in order to quell that uprising in the city of Chicago. So if you had that in multiple cities across this nation. They couldn't stop it. They couldn't stop it. And, I know there's talk of FEMA camps and I believe in them. I mean, I know of there's a couple here in Wisconsin, and I know people personally who have gone and taken pictures of these camps and these detention facilities. The classic video of Governor Jesse Ventura with they had the body bags. I don't know if you saw that one. But
I'm sure it's in a reaction to Katrina and whatnot, where they were highly criticized for not being prepared, and now they're being now in classic government reaction, they're getting over prepared. I can justify all of that. The body bags, the FEMA camps, and
the one thing,
I mean, that's just classic government overreaction to being criticized for so hard.
I agree with you, but one thing I disagree. All right, and there's a couple things you got to look at the pattern here. Once those body bags were discovered, and they were aired and everything, if a government came back and said, look, we're saving those for a mass issue like Katrina or whatever, obviously they think global warming, our weather's going to get worse, and all of that. The problem that I had with that is the fact that after that series ran, all of those mobile coffins and all that stuff, they disappeared. They literally disappeared and went somewhere out of people's sight. And I'm like, if I had a rented space and it was for FEMA, and FEMA says, look, we're going to use this for these disasters, and that was their story, then why all of a sudden do they need to hide them out of plain sight? That's the part that gets me. It's not the part that they have them. Come on. I mean, look at Katrina and stuff. I wish my government would have been a little bit more proactive than they were in that case. But the reality of it is, it's not what they did, it's what they do to hide. There's one thing that you learn in criminal justice, even you talk about computers with your background in computers. When people violate or break crimes, typically the crime that they commit is nowhere near the crime that they commit when they try to cover it up. Exactly. And so the government,
government is always guilty of the cover-up.
Yeah.
Always.
So I don't,
because it's a paranoia that grows out naturally in government work, and it grows out naturally because of it grows out. I don't know. I'm trying to put this correctly. And you see that. I saw this in the entertainment business too. So much of your job, let me put it this way, so much of your job in government is keeping your job. Do you know what I'm saying? So much of your job is not doing your job, but keeping your job.
Yeah, we call it.
It's a natural thing to become paranoid.
It's funny.
Do you follow me?
Oh, I got you. It's funny that you say this. So when you go to Congress and stuff, remember this. We actually, I had a Northwestern professor, and we're still good friends, but we call it the quantum mechanics of government, of civil service, and it's bodies at rest tend to stay at rest. Bodies that are in motion tend to return to rest. And so if this doesn't happen anymore, and I don't know why it's settled down, but you'll remember some years ago that there was just a rash of postal workers shooting the place up when they got fired. In fact, there was, it became a part of the zeitgeist to say people going postal. When people would shoot somebody, they'd say, "Oh, he went postal on me." And I don't know when that stopped, but it stopped at some point, and you haven't had a postal worker go postal in quite a while. But there was just a rash of it. Do you know why?
And the reason people would go postal at the post office is because it was such a cushy job that people who got fired realized they would never get such a cushy job again, ever. I mean, it's just impossible.
Yep.
And so they go nuts and come back and shoot the place up.
Well,
and of course I'm being facetious and I'm simplifying it, but there is that mindset like, oh my God, I can't believe I just lost this job.
But
I'm going to kill somebody.
It's funny, funny that
it really is born out of paranoia.
Well, there's some sense to it. I mean, and I actually looked at that quite a bit, but and it's funny that Joe was on because in Ohio, there was a postal worker that worked there, and what the psychiatrists and the anthropologists looked at is that the postal system is kind of its own pseudo society, the way that it's structured and everything. And then what happened was of course the postal, you had Marvin Runyon come in, Nissan fame, TVA fame, come in and actually try to run it like a business. And you're absolutely right. And so what they started to do is put pressure on the postal workers, and they started to, do things. And then the problem was that you had a constant harassment. So anthropologists actually look at the used to look at the postal system as a microcosm of the greater society. And what happened was that, and they've proven this out, and it was a postal, I can't think of his name, but it was a postal worker in Ohio who actually went to California, and California, your state, was the first state to impose this anti-bullying law at work. And they said that actually eliminated a lot of because now if you go to work, and I mean, I watched the documentaries on this. They said the postal workers, these guys were like humiliated. These guys were the guys that went crazy. People don't snap. Some people do, But there's something that sets them off. And in the postal system, they said that what it was is that these managers were just completely just degrading towards these people, and that's what caused them to snap. Now, the reason why you don't see that anymore is because they've identified, the anthropologists, sociologists identified, they passed the laws, number one, to give you legal recourse, but more importantly, the postal workers now have an avenue in which if you're a belligerent manager, they have a grievance process that they can do. Before they couldn't, they had nothing. And you're absolutely right. Where else are they going to get a job such as they do? So that's why you say, yeah, they identify. Yeah, that's a very interesting study, because it's amazing how we've done the research there in the post, but we haven't addressed it in our schools, because your schools could be considered a microcosm of society as a whole too. And now, you see the children, killing each other, which, I just flat out say this on the air, and I don't care how I get blasted. I'm a pro Second Amendment person. I'm a pro gun right. But I can tell you this, there is no reason why a child should ever have access to a firearm, period. And when a child gets access to a firearm, someone needs to be held accountable. I'm a firm, I don't leave my keys laying around, so someone can just steal my car. I'm a Second Amendment, I'm a big time Second Amendment person, but I do believe when you hear about these young men and women, typically men, getting access to these firearms and going to school, there was some adult there that was negligent one way or the other. Now, unfortunately, in Sandy Hook, he was able to kill his mother and take him that way. But, who's to say that he shouldn't have had access to this? I don't know the particulars about that, so I won't speak to it. But yeah, we did learn our lessons with the postal system, but we're not applying it to other areas or other facets of the society. So.
Yeah, if he, God, you made me think of something, and then I just forgot it just as quickly. But, darn it. I had something really good to say.
Well, one of the things about,
like an idiot.
Well, no, that's I do it all the time.
Yeah, I know what it was. It was about the internet. It was about the post office. Yes. When to follow up, when I got my first email address in 1993, because I got a media account with AOL when AOL started. Mm-hmm. You remember CompuServe? I had a CompuServe account.
You're talking to a guy.
I got an AOL account, and I had one of those. It was just amazing. I didn't have to type. I could cut and paste the news. I was just out of my mind happy, and I had this email address, and I was sending email. You could send unsolicited email to people, to strangers, and
yep.
It was just the most exciting thing.
Well, it was the ham radio. It's the new ham radio.
Oh my God, it was.
Yeah.
And I still have that email address. It's just amazing. It's over 20 years old, and I paid a couple of years later. I paid my first bill online, and I think it was for like a periodical or something. I can't remember. I think it was for Wired magazine, as a matter of fact. And I paid it. It took like an hour, to pay it, but I was like so happy. And it was like it was like $12 for a year's worth of Wired magazine, or maybe it was 2 years.
Yeah.
And it hit me. It hit me all at once, Jeff. I said, wow. The post office is done. They are done with. Because not only am I sending mail, in other words, letters of communication to people, and this can only get, I only knew 5 people that had email addresses, but not, it's only going to get more elaborate. Millions of people are going to have email addresses like me, but pretty soon I'm going to be paying my electric bill. I'm going to be paying my rent. I'm going to be paying, I'm going to be buying stocks online. I could see the future in a second when I was paying this Wired magazine subscription online. I said, the post office is done. 10 years from now, there won't even be a post office. we'll just have FedEx and email.
Well,
but Jeff,
yeah.
They're still here.
Yeah, well,
and they got more employees than they had back then.
Yeah, well,
but they just lose more money.
Well, unfortunately,
how can that be?
And because we're paying for it. But unfortunately, there are laws that protect the post office. And because there's certain correspondence, obviously, that has to go through some kind of metered mail system. But if you could figure that one out, you'd be a genius. But how to do that But you're right. I mean, you look at the inefficiencies of our government and different organizations within our government, and they're just basically outdated. And, I know a lot of people get upset, but, you talk about the computer. I mean, there were a lot of typewriter manufacturers that went out of business because of the computer. That's just the business cycle. That's just the nature of the beast, if you want to say. And I agree with you. The post office is just it's outlived its usefulness. Now, I guess with their shipping and the way they're doing it, they're trying to come back. But the fact of the matter is that they still get subsidized. If FedEx and UPS are doing very well, and they're not subsidized at all by the federal government. So they're
doing great. And Jeff, you know a lot about business, and there are rules in business having to do with the economy, which are counterintuitive to people who don't know a lot about business. And I don't say that to put down people that don't know a lot about business. There are people that know a lot about arts and science that don't know a lot about or sports. The people have this thing that they know about, and some people know a lot about business, and a lot of it runs counterintuitive. One of the things that seems to not make sense, but is very true, and that is recessions, which occur once in a while, are actually good for American business.
Yes.
Because recessions make business strong.
Yes.
And it weeds out businesses that need to be weeded out. Because if you can't survive a recession, you really shouldn't be in business. And if you can survive a recession, you get rid of people that probably shouldn't have been there anyway. You get rid of processes that really you didn't need. You find out what you didn't need. You find out the vehicles, the machines, the product lines, and the buildings and the carpeting and stuff that you really shouldn't have had, and you just had around because you had extra money and you really weren't pressed. And you get trim and you get better during a recession, and you come back stronger. And that's the way business cycles go. It seems counterintuitive to say that, but it's very true.
Yeah.
Now, what, because you mentioned this a minute ago about, hey, economists are predicting the end of, the world for America, and they all may very well be right. But Jeff, I've been thinking lately, what if this Obama is just a really, really bad recession? What if this is just really a really flimsy springboard that we've just hit the end of really hard, and it is just going to send us into orbit when we get through it? Jeff, I'm really hoping that this is just whittling the strongest of us down to our core. Yeah. It is just jettisoning the fat. And we are going to come out of this thing, and we are going to realize that the past 60 years, they have been giving us the slow, steady drip of a light tyranny, and Obama was just a wake-up call. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the hopes. That's the hopes and aspirations that I have, and that's why it's refreshing to hear that we have, individuals such as yourself that are going to be hopefully representing us here in the near future. Because I guess the concern that I have is that we we have to put mechanisms back in place. Now, we talked about the Federal Reserve, and Ellen Brown, makes an excellent argument. I highly recommend that you listen to the interview I did with her first, but also she's in your neck of the woods, actually. She's in LA, so you might be able to reach out to her.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I will. You know what? I will. I didn't know she was in.
Oh, yeah. She has
what part of LA City?
I think she's in LA City, but I can give you her contact. But you can go to the Web of Debt. I'll tell you, she actually answers her emails. She's a very super individual. And what's really amazing is I'm listening to people that actually have. They actually have solutions, and that's what we bring here to the show. We have individuals like yesterday, we had Lou and we had Lauren from IamAmerican.org coming on, and they actually had solutions. They were like, look, we got to get, obviously Congress or, the government's not going to balance its own books, so we're going to force them to do it. So we're going to do a Constitution convention to force them to do it. That's a great solution. Ellen has a great solution as far as getting our financial controls. I mean, under control, and so, because you got to remember, a lot of this debt that's reported that we supposedly owe is owed to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve is charging us. I got to stress this because a lot of people just don't know this. The Federal Reserve is not federal, as we talked about, but the Federal Reserve is printing up our money, our resources. The government pays, the United States Treasury pays for the printing of the paper and all of that, but the Federal Reserve orders or executes the manufacturing of the paper, and then they charge us interest. So the first thing you want to do if you want to knock out the deficit or the debt is you absorb the Federal Reserve back into the, make it federal, actually make it federal.
That's right.
But the problem is the last two people, I don't know if the last two people that proposed that both got shot and assassinated. You had Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln basically told the Federal Reserve, I'm going to coin Civil War money outside of you. I don't care what you guys do. I'm going to coin, the United States government's going to coin its own money. And you're, knock yourself out. Well, of course, he got assassinated within weeks of making that announcement. Then you had John F. Kennedy, who was actually looking at doing the Federal Reserve. And
wasn't one of the board members on the Federal Reserve J.W. Booth?
Well, they were saying there's rumor. I haven't been able to tie that.
I was just kidding.
No, but hold on. He actually met with. Now let's go back to that. He actually met with 2 weeks or 3 weeks prior to the assassination attempt. He actually met with a very well industrialist who was associated with the Fed up in Canada, and there is a documented. They literally had the hotel where they were both at the hotel at the same time on the same date. So there is physical evidence, and history says that he actually met with them, and it was in Canada is where they met, and they hatched. So not Booth himself physically was a member, but he was in or he had associates who were part of the financial and part of the Fed. So
blame Canada, blame Canada.
Just Bob Canada.
You've seen one too many movies.
I love that movie, but going back to solutions and so Ellen had, she raises a great, and I think it's Missouri or Minnesota. I believe it's Missouri. They actually opened up a public bank, and what this is this bank is actually owned by the state and ran by the state. It's not a private bank, and it's going gangbusters. They're loaning out money the way that they should, not on speculation. They're loaning out, they sit down with you and say, all right, here's your assets, here's whatever. They're not putting out, and they're actually doing very well. And she's a huge proponent. That's one. The other thing that we talk about here constantly, and I know a lot of my fellow conservatives are against me on this one, but I'm for it, is the Glass-Steagall. We need, we gave all this money. We talked about it earlier in the stock market.
Okay, it cut out a little bit.
Oh.
What about Glass-Steagall?
Glass-Steagall. We talked about it earlier in our conversation about how the stock market, hit new records highs today. How is that money getting in there? Well, that money's getting in there because the Fed is pumping money into their member banks. The member banks then have investment houses now, because when Clinton repealed Glass-Steagall, prior to Clinton repealing it, you could either be a bank where you held money in reserve, or you can be an investment house, and you can take money on speculation. Now, if
one or the other,
you couldn't be both. You couldn't.
Right.
And
so you are in favor of reinstating Glass-Steagall, as I am.
I absolutely. I am a huge proponent
Why
of
on
Glass-Steagall.
earth would a conservative be against that? That's
Well,
insane.
because I don't want to say conservative. There are certain people in the conservative movement that say that once again you're putting regulation into the banking industry, and you're stifling capitalism. I've heard that argument.
Here's the thing. The stock market right now is a house of cards. The money, the idea behind printing money, what the Obama administration will tell you, is that we're printing money. The quantitative easing is so people can buy houses, which is a farce. If you were given money, and the reason I say given money instead of if you were being loaned money, listen, if somebody loans you money at 0%, they're not loaning you money, they're giving you money.
Yes.
And if somebody is giving you money at 0%, would you turn around and loan it to a person at 4 or 5% so they could buy a house? Or would you buy a guaranteed government bond, a guaranteed insured government bond, even if it was 1.5 or 2%? Well, of course you'd take the guaranteed money. You wouldn't loan it to a homeowner with all the inherent risk of homeowning. You'd be stupid to do that. So of course they're not loaning it to people that would buy houses. It's ridiculous. Exactly. Oh, well, how come they're not loaning money to regular people to buy a house? Well, you dope, because they're taking the guaranteed insured FDIC money. It's crazy.
No,
there's no such thing as 0% interest rate. Exactly. Do you know, Jeff, what would happen to this economy if interest rates went back to what they really are? Any idea?
Oh, it would.
My God, it would fold like a cheap lawn chair.
I remember, you talk about the 80s. I remember when my parents bought their first home, or my dad was military.
15%?
Yes, they were paying. I think they were paying like 12%. Or I remember those comments. My dad was military 22 years, so we always lived on base housing. So when my mom and dad built when my dad retired, they built their first house, and I remember they were paying somewhere like 9 to 12% interest. And it was, it was insane. But, of course, their house.
It was a deal. It was a deal compared to the late 70s.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And now, you can get a house at 3-4%. It's just nuts. I mean, it's crazy.
It's not real.
Yes.
Okay, it's not real. We're going through the same cycle. Fannie Mae and these companies, they own how many of these loans?
Yep.
40% of them? I mean, it's just not real. It is going to pop. That's the only thing we know for sure.
Well, it's definitely going to pop again. I mean, every American, you listen to the studies, and, I listen to Dave Ramsey and those guys, and you listen to all the studies out there and stuff. Most Americans, if you look at what's in your bank account right now, if you lost your job tomorrow, you would basically be bankrupt within 90 days. 90 days. Right. And that's representative of about 80% of American population. I mean, that's incredible. They were, even the Fed, Greenspan was on, was it Charlie Rose? It was one of the talking shows, and he actually said that people are now spending more money in surviving than they are in say. It's the first time that we pay more. People will put more money in taxes and interest and all of the different things that they have to pay for to maintain a level of lifestyle than they ever did, in savings. And it's outpaced each other. And that just tells you that the economy and the psychology is flipped. I mean, we no longer, I'll ask you. I don't want to be, you have a savings account?
Yeah, I have a savings account.
So you're unique, because most people that I talk to don't have a savings account. They don't even have a savings account, because they have checking accounts because they use that to pay their bills, but they don't have savings as something other than, when you talk to them, they say they have the 401k programs and all of that.
My savings account is a holding account, though. Okay. I don't even consider it. I try to keep as little as I can in my savings account.
Sure.
Because now having money in a savings account is stupid. I mean, because my mattress pays better than my savings account.
Exactly.
It's just not smart
to
have money in a savings account. So really, it's just there to hold money.
Yeah.
While I'm figuring out what to do with it.
We tell people,
you're just not smart to have money in a savings account. So anytime there's any appreciable money in my savings account, I switch it over to some sort of short-term bond, which isn't that much better, but it is better.
Sure. So yeah, we take it one step further. I just tell people that, that what you need to do is, of course, have enough income to support yourself when the banks, when the ATM shut down or whatever. But the other thing is buy tangible products. Buy tangible things that you're going to need, that you're going to, if you know, it's funny. I get a lot of people that sit there we have a gentleman on Thursday called Prepper Recon. He shows people how to do prepping and stuff. But one of the things that we talk about consistently on that show is that if I went grocery shopping the other day. Remember Campbell's soup when you used to get a can for 25 cents or 50 cents?
Mm-hmm.
It's like $1.29 and the can's half the size. And so one of the things is, you're going to eat, right? You got to eat. So why? And the price of food's going up. So why don't you just take that money and go ahead and get you some food, that you can store at it, and you're saving yourself money, and you're actually making money in a sense, because if you buy it at the inflationary rate, it goes from 50 cents to $1.29 in another year or so. It's probably going to be $2 a can, so get it. And that's, the angle that I just tell people, buy tangible, instead of having your money in the bank, everybody needs to have property somewhere. Everybody needs that, buy the tangibles that you're going to need and eventually you're going to use. Buy them now while they're still cheap or inexpensive, and because they're just going to go up. I mean, we know that. All the economists are saying that. I mean, you see it when you go grocery shopping. So, I don't know.
What when you're posting, let's talk about the phenomenon of Facebook. Facebook's an interesting company to me because, first of all, the guy who started Facebook is a real kind of, what's the word? He's a contradiction. First of all, obviously, a success story just beyond almost any success story in the United States, in the history of the United States, in the history of capitalism. But on the other hand, he was successfully sued for basically ripping off everybody he's come in contact with.
Yes.
So, is he a successful capitalist, or is he the greatest thief?
He's an opportunist
in the history of the of capitalism.
No, I think he was an opportunist.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I want to answer that. I mean, I think Zuckerberg was an opportunist. He had people around him in the history, and to your point, he successfully was sued for this. I mean, just because you're sued doesn't necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of legal wrangling that goes on and stuff, and there's sometimes where you just say, like, look at Donald Trump. Look, I'm declaring bankruptcy for a legal business standpoint. Doesn't necessarily mean you're guilty, but in the case of Zuckerberg, he actually took other people's ideas and he basically used them, and then he didn't pay those people. He didn't, and it's one thing I can understand if you go bankrupt, you didn't pay him, but he billionaire and he still didn't pay his commitments. He didn't give up half of his, he still would have walked away with $1 billion
and
versus
his friend who funded his idea that wasn't his idea.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, put it this way: if half the stuff in that movie is true, this guy's the crook. This guy makes Ponzi look like an altar boy.
Oh yeah.
And anyway, that wasn't the point of it. Yeah. The point is, it's a dubious beginning, and I'm being nice when I say that.
Well,
now
hold on. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to add a little bit. Hold on.
Facebook does an IPO that everybody agrees is a disaster. It is borderline criminal. I mean, people are saying, "Wait a minute, there's something funky going on," and then all of a sudden, the funkiness goes away, Jeff. It goes away. And nobody knows why. The SEC drops what they're doing regarding Facebook. The price stabilizes.
Yep. Trading
resumes. Everything's happy. And the chatter even goes away.
Yeah.
Well, now, I don't know if these two things are related, Jeff.
Oh, they're very related.
I'm just here as an observer, like you.
Let me break it down for you.
Later, we find out that Facebook and the government are working hand in hand on some very dubious matters.
I'm going to break it down for you. I am actually going to accelerate your argument. Number one. If you in the late 90s, if you went to the federal government and you said, look, we want to build a database that corrals all these individuals and ties them together and stuff, the federal government, or at that time, Congress would say you're absolutely nuts. You're violating people's constitutional rights. So the CIA and the NSA realized that they couldn't do that. Now, one of the things that our government does, and a lot of Americans don't know this, I know because if you read I'm an insider to some of this stuff, not to what they were doing, but I'm an insider. So I understand this public-private cooperation. What military or what certain agencies will do is they will hire a corporation to do to people what they legally can't do, that they're forbidden to do under the article, under the Constitution, under the United States law. So they'll hire a company to aggregate your license plates, and they'll call that they'll sell that information to advertising companies, but in the meantime, they're also gathering your driving patterns and all that stuff. They'll hire companies to develop healthcare systems, and I know this firsthand. They'll develop healthcare systems that will detect biological, nuclear attacks and things of that nature. But they're gathering people's patient records. But it's the company doing it. It's not the government that's doing it, but ultimately it's the government that's funding the grants and doing that. That was a big project that was going on here in Chicago. So our government realized very early on that they can't build these matrix data systems. And so they found this company called Facebook, and they funded them. If you look at some of the original founders or original funders of Facebook, you can Google it. I'm not going to tell you. Google it. Do the research. I'm going to pull an Alex Jones on you. I tell people that. Go out there and do the research on your own. You come to your own conclusion. I've already done the research, so I already know. What they'll do is so what they did is they hired these companies. They created Facebook. They funded them. They gave them money, and then Facebook built this thing. Now, it's not. Everybody thinks that the NSA, the government's now wanting to pull back on its surveillance. The reason why, government, one thing about government, especially I grew up, my father was Air Force. And the Air Force had the SR-71 Blackhawk. Remember that?
Sure.
And then, super plane. I remember seeing it once. My dad was always stationed at a TAC base or a nuclear base, a SAC or TAC base. And I remember seeing it once as a kid, an SR-71 Blackhawk. And the thing was, it was crazy. Well, they decommissioned it. Everybody's like, well, wait a minute. This plane goes, Mach 3, Mach 4. It's the state of the art.
Supersonic.
Yeah, it was, state of the art. Well, the reason why they got rid of it is because they had something better. They had
Right. That's something better than 1959.
Exactly. Our government's not going to give up something unless they have something better. And I'm a firm believer that think about it. I can go to I got friends on Facebook. I mean, that's how we met and everything originally and stuff. But I can get your personal information, your cell phone. People put all sorts of crazy stuff up there on Facebook. I'm going on this trip. I'm going on that trip. I'm doing this. I have, and the government has already said that they pay. The FBI actually has people that they pay that friend you on Facebook so they can get access. Now, they can write an API, and for those people that don't know, that's a type of code. Facebook is gives access to that. When you use some of the tools, they'll say, they'll ask you, can we have access to your contact list? You say yes. So they can actually suck. So if they're, if Jeff Norton is out there and I'm saying something that's against the government and the government wants to shut me down and everything, they can go friend me on Facebook. They can see who all my friends are. They can see everybody that I interact with, and then they can shut me down, and then they can expand their tentacles out, and we willingly give that information up. I know what I'm doing when I post on Facebook. I know exactly what I'm doing and the risks and stuff. But look, I'm running a radio show and podcast. I'm already out there. I don't hide behind a pseudo name. I mean, I am.
You're okay with it?
Yeah, I'm fine with it because I know what. Hey, look, I don't have to hide against anything because I ain't got nothing to hide. You ask me any question, I'll tell you. Everybody knows. I'll go to when they come knocking, and they have. I don't know. I shared this story with a caller or with a guest. 2 days after I started the show, I said some pretty lofty things against the President of the United States. In the whole history of my life, I've had 2 interactions with law enforcement. Those were both related to speeding tickets. In my whole life, those are my interactions with law enforcement. And I can tell you, I had a gang unit standing in my front lawn with knocking on my door, and they had a picture of a guy, and they said, "Does this person who lives here? Who lives in your house? Who's all here? Does this guy live here?" I'm like, "No, this guy doesn't live here. I've lived here for 5 years." And they were like, "Well, and they were asking the neighbors who lived there, asking me who was there in the house with me. They wanted to come in the house." This is honestly got 2 days after I started my show. And then I was sitting there and I was like, "Well," and the guy had a piece of paper and it had a guy's photograph on it. And I said, "Why are you at?" And he goes, "Well, this guy gave this address as his home." And I'm like, "Okay, that's valid. I can get that." And I said, "Well, can I see his face? Because maybe he walks by here, maybe I'll recognize him or something." So the gang member, the officer, handed me the piece of paper, and it was folded up in half. And when he handed it to me, kind of like handed it out, I grabbed it and I looked at the back of it, and it said Jeff Norton, and it had my address on the back of the paper. There you go. Yeah. And I just looked at the piece of paper. I said, "No, I've never seen him. I don't know who he is. You might want to go down to the local barbershop right here on the corner and stuff. That's, a lot of guys hang out there. Maybe ask them." But as I sit here and tell you, when I flipped the paper over, as he was handing it to me, he had my name and the address on the back of the paper. So, you got to ask yourself, who are they listening to and how are they listening to you? And, everybody, like I said, I have friends that are in law enforcement. I have friends that are in different agencies, and I have friends who have worked for different government contractors. And, they're telling me I'm a little paranoid. I just find it coincidental because I've never had that. And it all started with the fact that I started the Midnight Patriot Facebook page, and I started posting some pretty damning stuff out there pretty quick, and some inside information kind of stuff. And like I said, 2 days later, I had police literally knocking on my door. So
Facebook has really allowed people to not just, connect with people they wouldn't normally connect with, but Facebook has done something Facebook has done a lot of negative things in a lot of people's minds. But let me tell you something that it's ruined, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook has absolutely ruined the high school reunion. Because it used to be when you'd go to a high school reunion, you were shocked. You were just shocked. You'd see your old girlfriend. You couldn't believe she got so fat. You would see some of the people that you used to hate, and you'd see them. All of a sudden, you're friends with them. You can't believe how cool they are. You'd see some of your old drinking buddies, and they've gone to crap, and you don't want to hang out with them all the time. You know, all these weird stuff happens at the high school reunion, and it's great. It's just a great night of, you know, shocking stuff, fun stuff, you know, getting together, people you don't know what they're doing, it's all mystery, it's all, now, you go to a high school reunion, well, you know everything about everybody. It's like Facebook ruined it.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no big deal about going to a high school reunion. That's number one that Facebook ruined. Number two, I can't tell you how many people I know that have gotten in trouble because of Facebook. They get on there, and they start chatting with these women that they haven't been in contact with for years.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you're saying.
And the next thing you know, they're in trouble with their wives and their husbands because they can't help but start flirting like idiots.
And that's not Facebook's problem, though. That's
Facebook is ruining marriages across the land.
Well,
people that they would never come in contact with if it wasn't for Facebook.
Yeah. Well, I have to, you can't, I can't blame the fork because I'm fat. I'm going to make that argument because it's not, you obviously have I don't know.
I'm blaming Facebook on that one. I got to blame the vehicle on that one. Well, you're right. Of course, it's the people's fault. But I'm just saying, Facebook, sure, in a lot of cases, that never would have happened without Facebook. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree with it's funny that you said that because there was actually an article today I was reading where a gentleman posted some threatening comments about the government and the administration and stuff like that. Well, needless to say, to tell you how quick Big Brother's listening to you and stuff, a day later he had Secret Service and the FBI sitting on his doorstep. So
that's right.
So
people get awful ballsy.
Yeah.
On when they're online, I'll say that. For some reason, and this used to happen to me back in the late '90s. I used to make a living online during the first internet, big internet bubble, whatever you want to call it. And boy, people, when the internet was first really, really going crazy, I would say the late '90s, early 2000s, before it bust the first time around. People just went nuts, and they forgot that there are laws. People thought if they're online, they weren't subject to the normal laws of society.
Yep.
And for some reason, they just thought they could threaten you with violence and say all kinds of things, and they just didn't think that the laws pertained to when you were online. And I had to remind people, look, I know that you're talking through email and you think that the laws don't apply, but you can't threaten to kill people and hit people with baseball bats just because you're doing it through email. It's still assault.
Yes.
It's still you're still threatening me. I would tell an improper joke or something, and people would just threaten my life, and I would not. I wouldn't know them personally, but I'd know who they are. I'd know how to get a hold of them.
Yep.
It was just really weird.
Well, like I said, I mean, I've already had the death threat. I've already had the one, and I get hateful mail. Like I said, but all that does is empower me to do even more. So because I know I'm hitting that nerve and everything. But you know, it is what it is what it is. So let's talk about your political your run. You're going for 214.
Finally, an hour and a half, Jeff.
An hour and a half. I'm going to get into
what I came out here for.
Well, you know, it's funny. I warned you, though. I told you when we talked that we have conversations. This is not an interview. We actually have conversations, and that's what this show's all about. It's just talking.
I know. I'm just giving you.
I know. So you know, let's kind of back up. Let's talk about your 2014 run. How are things shaping up for you?
Well, things are going really great. I've been in politics since 1987 or 1989 or so. I can't remember. Long time. I'm really lucky. I'm just really a lucky guy. When I was a kid, I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Illinois, like we were talking about earlier, and people called me a dreamer. Everybody called me a dreamer. You're a dreamer. And they weren't saying that in a good way. They were being, mean to me. My parents, my friends, my siblings, everybody said, you're a dreamer. You need to go to California. And they said that in a very mean way. They were not being nice. California, like, you're a dreamer. You need to get to California. So, well, it turns out they were right, first of all. I packed up my Chevy van. That's right, my Chevy van. And I headed west. As soon as I got my diploma, I headed west. I just was like, I was on a mission to get to California because everyone said that's, because I was a dreamer. And that's where California, that's where everybody went when they were a dreamer. So I just headed west, and I broke down in Missouri. That's all the further I got. And so I had to work in Missouri till I made enough money to get my Chevy van fixed. And when I got it fixed, I headed west, Jeff. And I was headed toward Arizona, and I broke down again in Phoenix. So I didn't make it. But when I worked. I went to school a little bit. I was there so long. And when I made enough money to buy a Ford van instead of the Chevy, I made it all the way to California, and Jeff, all of my dreams came true. And I just got really lucky. I met 3 guys, Oliver North, Rush Limbaugh, and a guy named Bert Prolutsky, who was an Emmy Award winner, a writer on a show called MASH. You remember that show?
Oh, yeah, my favorite. One of my favorite shows.
I tell you, I was, eventually I became Rush's, I worked for Rush Limbaugh as his writer for 5 years. And then Bert Prolutsky told me to become a stand-up comic. I was a comic for 12 years, and I went all over the world entertaining people and troops, and I just had a great life. And I worked in the entertainment side of politics for the better part of 20 years, and I had a wonderful life. And I retired in 2008, and I went into politics, straight politics, full time. I've had clients like Ann Coulter and Herman. I was Herman Cain's speechwriter, and I worked with Joe the plumber. I worked on Joe the plumber's campaign. He was on earlier, and a lot of other people's campaigns. And I've never been a candidate myself before, but all of the aforementioned people and a lot of other who's who of conservative pundits and politicians, David Horowitz and everybody you can think of. They've all encouraged me to run over the years, and now I was working for a guy who was running for an open seat in the House of Representatives in District 8 in California, which was a newly redrawn district in 2012. And the guy who was the incumbent, Jerry Lewis, retired. Not the comic Jerry Lewis, but his name's Jerry Lewis. He was the incumbent in that district for, I don't know, 30 years or something. And he retired, and it became an open seat, and it got redrawn. Before that, it was actually Nancy Pelosi's district, which is kind of weird.
That's what I was wondering.
Republicans redrew it, and it's the largest district in California. It's District 8, Jeff, is huge.
Yeah.
It's massive. I don't know if you know the geography of California, but it goes basically from 29 Palms, which is a Marine base near Palm Springs. It goes from there over to San Bernardino, over like near Route 66, and then up through the mountains, through Barstow and Hesperia, where I live, Victorville, and all the way up past, the longitude of San Francisco, up through way up to Bishop, and all the way up to the Nevada border, and all the way back down to Needles, and like a big triangle. It's just massive. It's the second largest district in the country, I think. I think there's one in like Wyoming or Montana that's bigger. And primarily because it's just a big desert and farmland. I grew up a farmer in Illinois, and so I really relate to this area. And in 2012, I was working for a conservative guy running against a kind of a squishy, I will call him a squishy Republican. It's an open primary system here in California, which is a really stupid way to run things. Typical California. Which means anybody can run, and the top two finishers in the primary go at it in the general. And it doesn't matter who it is. So it could be two Republicans, two Democrats, two whatever. So two Republicans won the primary. One squishy Republican and one true conservative. And unfortunately, the squishy Republican won. So he's in there now, and I'm running against him because he's voting. He voted for amnesty. He voted to fund Obamacare. He voted against any amendments, any efforts, any bills to curb the activities of the NSA or any other government departments or agencies to expand domestic spying or any other onerous activities to usurp the people's rights under the 4th, 5th, or 10th Amendments. And I just can't take it anymore, Jeff.
I'm mad as hell, and I can't take it anymore. I know that feeling.
That's right. And I'm running.
Good for you.
I believe in my heart, Jeff, that I'm running for the right reasons. And I make you this promise. I'm not going there to make friends, unless his name is Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, and a handful of real patriots. And I won't stab you in the back. I won't betray you, and I won't fund bills that I myself am exempted from. That's disgraceful.
Yeah.
I would never do that. That's my word.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think that's what this is, and we need more. I was listening. I'm stuttering. I was listening to a former mayor in a town in Jersey, and in his book, and one of the things that he pointed out is we need more statesmen. We don't need any more politicians. Washington, D.C. has so many. We need statesmen. We need people to go there who are actually going to make a difference and not go along with it, status quo. And it's amazing that how many politicians or how many individuals get into politics and get corrupted, along the way. I mean, is Washington, D.C. that polluted and everything. So it is refreshing to hear you flat out say, look, if you vote for me, I'm not going to vote for a bill that I'm not going to apply to myself. I mean, it's very critical that people hear that. We had Stone Anthony on. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's actually making a run for as an independent or his own party. And he's just a normal, ordinary guy that says, look, if I ever got elected as president of the United States, I'm going to run it like you run your home. I'm not going to pay for things that I can't afford. I'm not going to, here's my phone number. You can actually go to his website. His phone number's out there, and he's actually getting he's having a hard time because he's got to raise 850,000 signatures to even get on the ballot. So yeah, he's got to have 850,000 signatures on a petition. So next year in the spring, I'll be traveling with him. He is literally going to get on his motorcycle and for 4 months, and he's going to go across this country and he's going to get signatures. And God bless him. I hope it worked because great interview, 3-hour interview, kind of like ours that we have tonight. And he just like a real American. I mean, just a real, down to earth kind of guy. Look, when I go to office, this is it. I'm going to have weekly calls with people where people can ask me questions. I'm not going to have a press secretary. I will go out there and, if I can't answer my own policies, then maybe I shouldn't be making them. I mean, just down the earth.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have a press secretary, but the only thing he or she's going to be doing is setting up interviews, setting up speeches, setting up town halls, setting up places where I can go and answer questions.
Sure.
If anybody listening wants to, and are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Uh-oh, I lost you.
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, I thought I lost you.
Nope.
If anybody listening can and wants to, go to my Facebook page. It's Conover for Congress Facebook page. I believe it's facebook.com/RLC. What is it, Jeff? You have it. RLC 4 Common Sense. That's what it is. RLC 4 Common Sense.
I actually have your Comedy on Tap site up.
Don't go there. That's a great place, but that's not where to go. And just like the page because I'm constantly posting, and for all things Rodney Lee, that's where to go. And I'm building out my official website, and it'll be up soon. And
sure.
There'll be lots of fun videos and. I got to tell you something else, though, Jeff. People ask me all the time. They say, "Rodney, you have a great life. What's the matter with you? You have to, you've got a ranch, you've got horses, you've got a dog. Why are you running for Congress?" And I say, "Well, I want to be a congressman because I want to be exempt from Obamacare." And my point is, I'm not a single issue guy, but it's becoming very close.
Yeah.
This thing is going to destroy us. I'm not being dramatic, Jeff. Obamacare is something that liberals have been working on for 100 years in America. It is something that is written about extensively by people like Karl Marx and Saul Alinsky forever. It is the ultimate power grab for people who do not have your best interests in mind. If they can control your ability to see a doctor, they got you by the short hairs, friends. And if you don't believe, they will use that power politically after what we've just gone through as conservatives with the IRS. Lois Lerner admitted it. Now, why she's not in prison is beyond me, but that doesn't matter. We live in a country where you associate yourself with words like patriot, conservative, Christian, Tea Party, the federal government can and will and has targeted you to deny you your civil liberties under the Constitution.
Yep. And
now, that's not paranoia.
No, that's fact.
Mr. Jeff. That is recent history.
Yeah,
that's not arguable.
No, that's absolutely that is in training manuals that they are giving to our military forces. They are actually telling that our military that if you support Christian organizations, if you support freedom work, organizations like Freedom Works, Heritage Foundation, any of those conservative, any of the teabagger organizations and stuff, you can actually be charged under UCC, under the federal law of code as a military. So no, and it's not conspiracy. You're absolutely right. It's in their documents. They actually had a training video that they had up there. A soldier, and I'm sure he's probably in Leavenworth right now, but he actually videotaped it and it's out there on the web. You can see it and you can literally hear the commander, the training officer tell the soldiers, tell the people that are in the classroom specifics that if you're a member of this or support or give any kind of charitable contributions, you can be actually held under UCC. So,
yeah, we people talk about the tipping point. Jeff, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we tipped, okay?
Yep.
We tipped. Hey, there's no more tipping point. Stop talking about this, and I'm not talking to you, Jeff. I'm speaking parenthetically. Stop talking about what's going to happen. I give a speech about police state. People say, well, we don't watch out. Someday we're going to wake up and we're going to be in a police state. Well, you are in a police state now. If this is not a police state, tell me what is. Jeff, I really enjoyed tonight, but I got to go.
Oh no,
I'm getting a beeping from my phone that tells me it's going to cut out at any second.
I got you.
And I don't want to just cut out.
No.
I want to say good night, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
Not a problem, Rod. I hope to have you again. Thoroughly enjoyed it once again. I mean, it's great conversation and everybody. So, you can actually go out to Rodney's website, his Facebook page. If you join us on Facebook at www.themidnightpatriot.com, there's links there to our Facebook page. And of course you can put in Rodney Lee Conover, Conover, and link to his page. We, like I said, even though he's in California and everything, we can still support him. We can still help him and get the word out and get his message out and help him get elected. And it would be awesome that, a lot of people don't know, and Rodney brought this up, that he is actually in the former district of Miss Nancy Pelosi. So it would be great to be able to take that crown jewel away from her in that regard. And more importantly, it would be awesome to be able to put a fellow patriot in office. I mean, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, all of those people, they need our help. We need to send a support group for them. And I know that sounds kind of strange, but we need to surround them with individuals who are going to carry the patriotic message forward. And it's our responsibility to give them help. Can you imagine if Ted Cruz had more, the GOP, you didn't hear a lot about it, but the leaders of the GOP kind of stood back, let Ted Cruz take the blunt of it and take the hit of it. And can you imagine how things would have been different if he had a group, say 50, 60, 70, like-minded senators around him? Can you imagine the change that we would have made, that we would have done and everything? So there we go. It's already ringing. Sorry about that. So that was actually Rodney. His phone died and everything. But I just want to tell everybody, we're coming to the top of the hour, or the end. It's 12 o'clock here at the show. And I just want to tell everybody, great conversation. We are effecting change here at the Midnight Patriot, and we need your help though. I try not to do this. I try to just keep it to one time a night. The only way that we're able to get out to the masses, and we're doing a phenomenal job. We are in consideration for iHeartRadio. It's not a matter of, well, someday we'll get on iHeart. We're actually being considered. We're in front of their executive review, whatever their process are. So we are affecting change. Our show is growing astronomically night over night over night. But one of the things that you can do to help us, we want to get some more equipment in here. We're looking at a what they call a digital hybrid, like tonight. Earlier tonight, great example. We had 2 outstanding guests, and we had to juggle the technology around to try to accommodate them. If we would have had a digital hybrid in here, we could have not only had the guests on, but we also could have had callers at the same time. So, we need your help. I'm not asking for you to buy that for us. We'll buy it. But, one thing that I am asking is, if you're a small business owner, if you know of a small business owner and you're listening to the show, or you have a friend and your products and services, you want to sell to our listeners. One of the things about podcasts and radio, especially the type of show that we do, our listeners are on normal radio shows. They spend about every hour. They'll tell you in the industry, they spend maybe 5 minutes actually listening, 5 to 15. In our type of show, literally, we have listeners for 3 hours. So we have a captive audience, because of what we're talking about. So, from a marketing advertising standpoint, our show, you'll reach more listeners. And like I said, our numbers, we'll show you the numbers. We don't have a problem with that. We're well over 1,000 listeners a day. Well over, almost hitting the 2,000 mark. And we've only been doing this 3 months. We're promoting even more. But what we're going to do is we'll take your money when you do advertising with us, and we're going to use it to build our brand. It's not going in my pocket. It's not going anywhere else. It's actually going to go to build, more advertising for us, but more importantly, to get us the equipment that we need to do a quality show for you. So like I said, go out to our website. We have links where you can, do the advertising. You pay right there. Now, when you advertise with us, you will also get, because we are putting in the advertising media servers. So with that, we'll also be able to give you a 30-second to 1 minute clip on our show. Because starting next week, that's one of the things that we have to do. We have to put in that advertising server. So when we run advertisements during the show, you'll be able to actually have an ad, on our podcast, and it will go out to 1,000, 2,000 people. Like I said, we're adding about 1,000 listeners a week. 1,000 listeners a week and everything. So, we are affecting change here. And I just want to say, thank you. Thanks for listening to us. Great guests. We had Rodney Lee Conover. We had Joe the Plumber. It's just incredible. And, we are getting out there. People are learning about us, and we are getting quality guests. Now, I will tell you, we're going to have in the next couple of weeks some movers and shakers in the Patriot movement. I'm not talking about, just guys you hear, guys of the quality of the 2 gentlemen that we had on tonight, people that you see on Fox TV, people that you hear about, on the Blaze and Hannity and all those guys. They're going to be joining us as well. So we're growing, and we can only do that with you. So with that, though, I want to make sure that we never forget our fallen soldiers. And I told you that we're going to end the show with this. We do it every night for those that are new to us and stuff. Normally we do it at the front of the hour, but because of, scheduling and everything, we have to do it at the back of the hour. So we're going to end our show with our standard salute to our soldiers. Marine Corps, Lance Corporal Christopher O. Grant. Army Sergeant Lyle D. Turnbull. Army Staff Sergeant Patrick H. Quinn. Army Sergeant Patrick C. Hawkins. Army Captain Jennifer M. Marino. Army Private First Class Cody J. Patterson. Army Sergeant Joseph M. Peters. Lance Corporal Jeremiah M. Collins Jr., Army Specialist Angel Lopez. Regardless of what your political beliefs are, what your beliefs are about this war or the wars that these young men and women are doing and putting on our nation's uniform, we will always respect you here at the Midnight Patriot. If you're a soldier, a family member of a soldier, or active, retired, whatever your situation is, if you are a soldier and you put on this nation's uniform and you need help, you can always contact us here at the Midnight Patriot. We will find you the help that you need. We will make sure that you are paid the respect that you deserve. To those family members who have lost loved ones, our hearts, our prayers go out to you and your family. May you find solace in knowing that we, fellow patriots, appreciate the sacrifices that your family member has made. If you need help, if you need any